Chapter 1408. Everything in the world had its own power. The creation of each martial Tao was based on the discovery of one of these powers. The Nine Profound Immortal Technique was created by the Nine Profound Immortal Technique using the stars in the sky. If the Nine Profound Celestial Venerable could do it, so could Chu Fengmian. Moreover, he had the Nine Profound Immortal Technique as a reference. It was much easier than creating a sword art on his own. Chu Fengmian comprehended the Nine Profound Immortal Technique and created a new sword art to integrate into the Nine Realms sword art. The power of the stars? The Nine Profound Celestial Venerable's expression changed when he saw Chu Fengmian using the power of the stars in the sky. He observed Chu Fengmian and laughed. What a kid! You want to comprehend a new sword art after fighting with me? However, it's not that easy to comprehend the Nine Profound Immortal Technique. The third move, Lu Siyuan. The Nine Profound Celestial Venerable saw through Chu Fengmian's intention and did not intend to continue the stalemate. He hoped that Chu Fengmian would defeat him, but he did not intend to go easy on him. Chu Fengmian would only be qualified to obtain the Nine Profound Immortal Technique and his inheritance if he defeated him. The Nine Profound Celestial Venerable waved his hand and grabbed at the stars in the sky. The power of the stars in the sky seemed to be grabbed by the Nine Profound Celestial Venerable and fell from the sky continuously. The entire sea of stars was under the Nine Profound Celestial Venerable's control. The power of the stars in his hand surged to the extreme and was 100 times more powerful than Chu Fengmian's. Chu Fengmian had barely comprehended a part of the Tao of stars from the battle with the Nine Profound Celestial Venerable. However, the Nine Profound Celestial Venerable was the one who created the Nine Profound Immortal Technique. The difference in their comprehension of the Tao of stars was like the difference between heaven and earth. Kid, if you can withstand this Lu Siyuan, then you can be considered to have passed my test. The Nine Profound Celestial Venerable looked at Chu Fengmian with a serious expression. However, you have to understand that this move is completely different from the previous two moves. Come. Chu Fengmian's expression became serious. The third move should be the move that could kill a heavenly being. He could not let his guard down. Boom. The Nine Mystic Celestial Venerate had gathered all the power of the stars in his palm. With a wave of his hand, the stars in the sky started to vibrate. All the power of the stars gathered at the tip of the Nine Mystic Celestial Venerate's finger. With a light flick of his finger, he blasted towards Chu Fengmian. A finger attack. The power of the stars in the sky was all integrated into the finger. This was the strongest power of the third move of the Nine Mystic Immortal Art, Fortune Cun. Rumble. Chu Fengmian felt as if his body was about to be torn apart before the finger even got close. Just the moment it was unleashed, it already possessed such terrifying power. Moreover, this was a move that the Nine Mystic Celestial Sovereign had executed purely on the martial Tao without any spiritual energy. If it had been executed by Emperor Gu with spiritual energy, the Nine Mystic Celestial Sovereign would not have been able to unleash such a move. That was the true shattering of a galaxy. Even celestials would not be able to withstand it. Chu Fengmian's gaze was incomparably solemn. The moment the finger shot out, Chu Fengmian even had the thought of retreating in his heart. The power contained in this finger was enough to shatter a galaxy. No one would believe that the martial Tao alone could produce such a terrifying power. But now it had appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. Nine Realms Sword Technique. Sword connecting gods. Chu Fengmian roared. He had to withstand this finger attack. Chu Fengmian would not be defeated at this final step. Bursts of sword intent burst out from Chu Fengmian's body. Even the ancient book of Sword Tao condensed in front of Chu Fengmian. Suddenly, the ancient book of Sword Tao shattered. The Sword Tao recorded on every page flew out and landed beside Chu Fengmian, surrounding him. This was the brand new page of the ancient book of Sword Tao. While it was writing, it continuously pulled down the power of the stars from the sky to protect Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's sword Dao, the complete sword Dao, was fully displayed. He did not hold back any longer. Success or failure depended on this move. Rumble. The speed of this finger attack was astonishingly fast. Under the pressure of the finger attack, the sword Dao around Chu Fengmian was about to be shattered. However, the pages of the ancient book of sword Dao continued to protect Chu Fengmian, withstanding the attack. The stars in the sky shattered one after another, as if they were about to be shattered by the power of the finger attack. At the same time, the power of the two swords in Chu Fengmian's hands was pushed to the extreme. Taking the attack head-on was not Chu Fengmian's style. What Chu Fengmian wanted to do was to break this move, to break the power of this finger attack. Lose! Chu Fengmian roared and slashed the two swords at the nine mystic, immortal venerable. Countless ancient runes gathered on the two swords. These ancient runes were Sword Dao, the most ancient Sword Dao. The power of the ancient book of Sword Dao was integrated into the two swords and slashed at the nine mystic, immortal venerable. Boom! The power of the sword and the finger collided in the air. The power contained in this finger attack was the power of the entire galaxy. Today, Chu Fengmian's sword was going to break the galaxy. Boom! 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 In the blink of an eye, the two forces collided thousands of times. Every time they collided, Chu Fengmian could clearly feel the power of the galaxy. The new page of the ancient book of Sword Dao was gradually being enriched and perfected. Not only this page, but two more pages of the ancient book of Sword Dao appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. Night Wolf, Giant Gate, Lu Siyuan. Chu Fengmian wanted to comprehend the first three moves of the nine mystic immortal art. Even the first page, Night Wolf, had been completed. Bang! The Night Wolf page was integrated into the ancient book of Sword Dao. The words, 9 domains, on the ancient book of Sword Dao seemed to have become stronger because of the integration of this page. Chu Fengmian's power was gradually reversed. Under this suppression, he finally had a chance to counterattack. Every time their forces collided, Chu Fengmian was gaining the upper hand. As the two pages of Giant Gate and Lu Siyuan were completely integrated into the ancient book of Sword Dao, the power of the stars in the sky was completely under Chu Fengmian's control. Boom! Chu Fengmian's sword broke the stalemate. The power of the finger attack was forcefully torn apart. At the same time, he pointed the sword at nine mystic celestial venerate and stabbed into his chest. The moment Chu Fengmian's sword pierced the nine mystic immortal venerable's chest, the surrounding world began to spin. At the same time, on the 21st floor of the Martial Dao Pagoda. Chapter 1409. The entire Martial Path Pagoda was lit up by the dazzling light. Emperor Yen and Qing Meng looked at each other in shock. They had experienced the difficulty of the Martial Path Pagoda. They did not expect that someone could pass the Martial Path Pagoda, especially Chu Fengmian, who was only a boundary emperor. After the shock, Qing Meng's face was filled with joy. She thought in her heart, just how many secrets is this junior brother of mine hiding? She could not see through Chu Fengmian's secrets. Previously, Qing Meng thought that Chu Fengmian had shown his full strength. She did not expect Chu Fengmian to be stronger than she had imagined. Just passing the Martial Path Pagoda meant that Chu Fengmian's comprehension of the martial path had reached an unimaginable level. No Emperor Gu could compete with Chu Fengmian. With such comprehension of the martial path, as long as Chu Fengmian's cultivation level increased, his strength would skyrocket countless times. Moreover, passing the Martial Path Pagoda had great benefits. Qing Meng had passed the 13th floor and received a primitive emperor pill. Now, Chu Fengmian had passed all 21 floors of the Martial Path Pagoda. Even she did not dare to imagine the benefits he would receive. However, Qing Meng looked at the direction of the Martial Path Pagoda and frowned slightly. Now, Chu Fengmian had not left the Martial Path Pagoda. She did not dare to step into the Martial Path Pagoda because of the seal on the Martial Path Pagoda. She could only wait at the side. Inside the Martial Path Pagoda, the 9 mystic celestial venerables' figure condensed again. However, the figure in front of him had become much more illusory. After all, the 9 mystic celestial venerable in front of him was just a force left by the 9 mystic celestial venerable. After hundreds of thousands of years, he did not have much strength left. His battle with Chu Fengmian had exhausted the last bit of his strength, but he still had an incomparably delighted look on his face. The 9 mystic celestial venerable looked at Chu Fengmian and said, "Little guy, what is your name?" Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian replied. Chu Fengmian. Good, very good. After hundreds of thousands of years of waiting, you did not disappoint me. Who said that an Emperor Realm Master could not possess the martial path to kill a heavenly being? I can do it. The 9 mystic celestial venerable laughed. For hundreds of thousands of years, no one had been able to obtain his inheritance. That was because no one had been able to complete his trial. Only those who were comparable to the 9 mystic celestial sovereign could pass the 21st floor of the martial pagoda. Giving you the 9 profound immortal art means that I, Jiuyu, have not lived in vain. The 9 mystic immortal venerable looked at Chu Fengmian and laughed. I won't accept you as an apprentice. I, Jiuyu, will never accept any apprentices. You're no exception. Consider these Jiuyu immortal arts your reward for passing the test. Also, I'll give you this immortal's cave. Without waiting for Chu Fengmian's reply, the 9 mystic celestial venerate waved his hand and a brocade cloth flew toward Chu Fengmian. This brocade scroll was much more complete than the one in Chu Fengmian's possession. It recorded the complete 9 profound immortal art. The 7 forms of the 9 profound immortal art were all recorded in the book. At the same time, a jade talisman was sent into Chu Fengmian's mind. Chu Fengmian observed the jade talisman and found that it contained the method to control the cave. This incomparably mysterious cave dwelling was now fully displayed in Chu Fengmian's mind. Even every treasure and every expert within was in Chu Fengmian's view. After refining the jade talisman, Chu Fengmian became the sole owner of the cave. The entire cave was under Chu Fengmian's control. Thank you, Immortal Venerable. Chu Fengmian took the brocade jade talisman and said, You don't have to thank me. These are your rewards for passing the test. The 9 mystic celestial venerates said with a smile. Apparently, he was overjoyed that someone had passed the test. You created your own sword technique. This 9 profound immortal art is for you to comprehend. Little guy, I hope we'll have a chance to meet in the future. The 9 mystic celestial venerates said with a meaningful smile. A chance to meet in the future? Chu Fengmian was stunned when he heard this. Didn't the 9 mystic celestial venerate die? Before Chu Fengmian could ask, the 9 mystic celestial venerates figure disappeared completely. Only Chu Fengmian was left in the martial pagoda. What does the 9 mystic celestial venerate mean? Did he not die? But he hasn't appeared for hundreds of thousands of years? Chu Fengmian was confused. The 9 mystic celestial venerate must have said that on purpose. However, Chu Fengmian was not qualified to know the secrets hidden in it. The secrets of immortals were not accessible to humans. Unless Chu Fengmian stepped into the heavenly human realm and became an immortal. Heavenly human realm? Soon. Chu Fengmian put away the brocade jade talisman. At the same time, the space in the martial pagoda expanded a few times. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but nod. Now, everything in the cave was under his control. He pointed his finger and a bronze statue appeared. Chu Fengmian pointed his finger and the bronze statue disappeared again. Passing the martial pagoda will give me a good reward. I wonder how many treasures there are in the treasure vault of the martial pagoda? Chu Fengmian thought of this and a jade talisman appeared in front of him. The jade talisman was a map that showed everything in the cave to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian understood why he couldn't meet anyone except Emperor Yan when he saw the map. There were 7 martial pagoda in the cave alone. The warriors who entered the cave would be assigned to a martial pagoda. The 9 mystic celestial venerates cave was designed to choose the warriors who inherited the 9 mystic immortal technique, not to kill. Chu Fengmian saw the blood god Emperor Gu, Shui Xen Emperor Gu, and the others in the cave. They were all taking the martial pagoda's test. Everyone had gained a lot of benefit. In addition to the 7 martial pagoda, there were many treasures of different sizes that could be explored. At the center of the cave was a treasure vault. It was the real treasure vault of the cave. The treasures of the 7 martial pagoda flew out from the vault. The vault was located at the center of the cave and was protected by restrictions. No warrior or demon god could get close to it. They could only get a small part of the treasures that were revealed. But now, Chu Fengmian had become the owner of the cave. All the restrictions in the cave were under his control. Chu Fengmian looked at the area where the blood god Emperor Gu was and sneered. Chapter 14:10. With a thought, Chu Fengmian took full control of the 9 mystic celestial venerates cave abode. Seal! Rumble! Following Chu Fengmian's command, all the exits of the cave abode were sealed. Without Chu Fengmian's permission, no one could leave. The seal on the cave abode was set up by the 9 mystic celestial venerate. Although it was only 10% of its original power, it was still difficult for any Emperor Gu to break through. After sealing the cave abode, Chu Fengmian formed a space tunnel in front of him. Chu Fengmian stepped into the tunnel and arrived at the treasury in the middle of the cave abode. The treasures in the treasury were all collected by the 9 mystic celestial venerate. With the 9 mystic celestial venerate's strength, no one knew how many treasures he had obtained. Many of these treasures were extremely useful to Chu Fengmian. Since the cave abode already belonged to Chu Fengmian, these treasures naturally belonged to Chu Fengmian too. Chu Fengmian would not leave them for others. Those treasures that had not been discovered by others were also collected by Chu Fengmian. Many of the treasures were useless to Chu Fengmian, but they were also priceless outside. Chu Fengmian would also have a large fortune if he kept them. The treasury of the 9 mystic celestial venerate was extremely huge. There were many palaces in it, and each palace was filled with countless treasures. Without exception, these palaces were all heaven-grade spiritual weapons. Although they were not as good as the Sword Sovereign Palace, they were much better than the palaces of most sections. Many of the Supreme Elders' palaces in the Sacred Dragon Secret Dimension were not as good as these palaces. There were countless palaces, and Chu Fengmian could see dozens of them at a glance. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and grabbed at one of the palaces. The palace was filled with countless spiritual herbs. Most of them were sacred herbs, and there were even some rare ancient sacred herbs that were placed in the palace. If these ancient sacred herbs were refined into elixirs, many of them would be of great help to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian did not have time to take a closer look at them. He immediately collected all the sacred herbs in the palace. One palace after another was collected by Chu Fengmian into his empty ring. Countless spiritual stones, books, spiritual weapons, materials, sacred elixirs, etc., were collected in an instant. Sword arts. Everything in this palace is filled with sword arts. Chu Fengmian suddenly became very excited when he collected one of the palaces. There was a palace full of swordsmanship in this palace. Many of these sword arts existed during the era of the 9 mystic celestial venerate and had not been passed down in this era. There were many sword techniques that Chu Fengmian had never seen before. They could be integrated into the 9 realms sword technique and allow it to improve further. Open them all! Chu Fengmian waved his hand abruptly, and countless swordsmanship in the palace flew out and unfolded in front of Chu Fengmian. Sword. Of them. Of Fengmian's. Represented. This time, after refining all the opportunities, I will have the hope of breaking through to the Emperor realm. The Emperor realm was the biggest threshold for Chu Fengmian now. If other cultivators had Chu Fengmian's current strength, or even 1/10 of his strength, it would be easy for them to step into the Emperor realm. But Chu Fengmian could feel that stepping into the Emperor realm was still very far away for him. Chu Fengmian's talent was extremely heaven-defying, but it was thousands of times more difficult for him to break through than ordinary cultivators. Now, he had obtained a lot of treasures in the cave mansion of the 9 mystics celestial venerate. It was enough to make Chu Fengmian's accumulation more profound, especially the 9 mystics celestial technique. Once he fully comprehended it, Chu Fengmian would be able to step into the Emperor realm. Chu Fengmian's countless fortuitous encounters could only show their true power when he truly stepped into the Emperor realm. With a wave of his hand, Chu Fengmian collected all the palaces outside. There were still 7 or 8 palaces on the mountain peak inside the treasury. Each of these palaces was protected by countless barriers. Even the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu would find it difficult to break the barriers. But these barriers were meaningless in front of Chu Fengmian. With a thought, these barriers shattered one after another, and the palaces all fell in front of Chu Fengmian. Good stuff. These are primitive emperor pills. So many. Chu Fengmian glanced at one of the palaces. There were countless treasures, and the most dazzling ones were the countless jade bottles placed in the deepest part of the palace. These jade bottles contained primitive emperor pills. Every primitive emperor pill was enough to help Emperor Gu break through a realm. Qing Meng was overjoyed when she got one. But now there were 15 primitive emperor pills in front of Chu Fengmian. A primitive emperor pill, if used well, was enough to create a 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. Keep in mind that a character like 9 tribulations Emperor Gu was rarely seen in the 4 great powers. In this era where there were almost no celestial realm experts, 9 tribulations Emperor Gu could be considered the strongest. If these 15 sister primordial emperor pills were to be taken out, it would be enough to cause the 4 major factions to fight tooth and nail for it. If they were to sell it, they would be able to obtain a huge amount of wealth. However, Chu Fengmian had no intention of selling these primitive emperor pills. The refining method of the primitive emperor pill and the refining method of the sacred medicine had long been lost in this era. Chu Fengmian intended to keep these primitive emperor pills for himself, Han Yueli, Luo Shi, and the others. At that time, Chu Fengmian, Han Yueli, Luo Shi, and even Qing Meng would all become 9 tribulations true emperors. Even the sacred dragon secret realm wouldn't dare to deal with Chu Fengmian. Boom. The other palaces were also taken away by Chu Fengmian. Although the treasures in these palaces weren't as precious as the primitive emperor pills, they were still rare items. Many of them were things that even 9 tribulations Emperor Gu would kill for. Now they were all taken away by Chu Fengmian. After all, these were the treasures of an immortal venerable. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but marvel at the items inside. It was a pity that there weren't any extreme immortal weapons in this treasury. Chapter 14:11. In Chu Fengmian's empty ring, there were 81 palaces filled with countless treasures. Chu Fengmian's wealth was considered to be incomparably rich compared to Emperor Gu. Even many of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu's wealth might not be as much as Chu Fengmian's. However, Chu Fengmian's wealth was like a drop in the ocean when compared to the treasures in the vault. The 81 palaces filled with treasures were enough to equip a sect. Although Chu Fengmian's wealth was not enough to establish a force like the sacred dragon secret dimension, it was still not enough to conquer an entire continent. However, it was definitely not a problem for him to rule a continent. After returning to the 9 regions, Chu Fengmian could even use the wealth to rebuild the Sword Dao sect and restore the glory of the Sword Dao sect. 10,000 years ago, the Sword Dao sect was destroyed due to the fall of the Master of Sword Dao. Chu Fengmian also had the idea of rebuilding the Sword Dao sect. However, Chu Fengmian's strength was not enough. Only when he was strong enough could he truly build the Sword Dao sect. These treasures could be kept until that day came. It's time to settle the score. Murderous intent surged in Chu Fengmian's eyes. The first person he wanted to get rid of was the blood god Emperor Gu. The blood god Emperor Gu would always be a scourge if he did not kill him. Now that the blood god Emperor Gu had fallen into Chu Fengmian's hands, there was no reason for Chu Fengmian to let go of the blood god Emperor Gu. Moreover, the Emperor Gu who came to the 9 mystic celestial venerates cave dwelling had many ulterior motives. Many of them had ulterior motives. They wanted to kill Chu Fengmian and seize his opportunity. Many of them were not in the minority. Many people attributed Chu Fengmian's strength to his fortuitous encounters. Chu Fengmian could contend against the 8 tribulations Emperor Gu as a quasi-emperor. His fortuitous encounters were definitely earth-shattering. Many Emperor Gu wanted to kill Chu Fengmian and seize all his opportunities. He would rather kill the wrong Emperor Gu than let them go. Now that Chu Fengmian was in control of the cave dwelling, he could move freely in the cave dwelling. In a flash, he returned to the martial arts pagoda and flew out of the martial arts pagoda. Outside the martial path pagoda, Qing Meng and Emperor Yen were also discussing the changes in the 9 mystic celestial venerates' cave abode. Given their strength, they could sense the changes in the 9 profound celestial venerates' cave abode. It was as if the door to the secret chamber had been sealed once again. The entire cave dwelling of the 9 mystic celestial venerate was sealed. Besides the changes in the 9 mystic immortal venerates' cave abode, the 2 of them were also wondering about Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian had passed the test of the 21st floor of the martial pagoda, but he had yet to appear. Could he have met with some mishap? Qing Meng was a little worried. Chu Fengmian was the most talented genius she had ever seen. Once he became an emperor, he would definitely become a master of his generation. However, geniuses were still geniuses, not experts. The number of geniuses who died halfway was uncountable. There were even some geniuses who were even more monstrous than the 9 mystic immortal venerable during that era. However, they eventually fell while the 9 mystic immortal venerable became an expert of his generation, an immortal venerable. The longer Qing Meng waited, the more anxious she became. If it wasn't for the seal on the martial pagoda, she would have already rushed in. At this moment, the martial pagoda shook and the door slowly opened. Chu Fengmian's figure walked out from the martial pagoda. Qing Meng finally heaved a sigh of relief when she saw Chu Fengmian. "Junior brother, are you all right?" "I'm fine. Just a little delay," Chu Fengmian said with a smile. Although it was an understatement, Chu Fengmian's aura was much stronger than before he stepped into the martial pagoda. Obviously, he had encountered a great opportunity. The 21st floor of the martial pagoda. Emperor Yen looked at Chu Fengmian and was secretly shocked. Although Chu Fengmian was a genius now, he was also considered a master. At least, even Emperor Yen might not have the confidence to defeat Chu Fengmian. Moreover, Chu Fengmian was still in the quasi-emperor realm. Once Chu Fengmian stepped into the emperor realm, Emperor Yen would definitely lose to Chu Fengmian. Brother Chu has obtained such a great opportunity in the 9 mystical cave mansion. In the future, I'm afraid that even old men like us won't dare to challenge Brother Chu. Emperor Yen looked at Chu Fengmian and suddenly said, "I heard that Brother Chu plans to deal with blood god Emperor Gu?" "Oh!" Chu Fengmian was stunned when he heard Emperor Yan's words. He quickly reacted and laughed. "Emperor Yen is interested? Emperor Yen is willing to help. After we kill blood god Emperor Gu, we don't want his wealth. How about we give it all to Emperor Yen?" Chu Fengmian could also hear Emperor Yan's intention to rope him in. Now that Emperor Yen had seen Chu Fengmian's strength, he no longer had the intention to be Chu Fengmian's enemy. He even wanted to rope Chu Fengmian in. After all, Emperor Yen didn't belong to the 4 great forces and didn't have any grudges with the Holy Dragon sect. It was normal for him to make such a choice. As for Chu Fengmian, he was naturally willing to accept someone's help. Even Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng's strength was a little weak. At least Chu Fengmian knew that on Blood God Emperor Gu's side, there were still Emperor Gu Shui Xen and Emperor Gu Judgment. These two Emperor Gu would definitely help Blood God Emperor Gu to deal with Chu Fengmian. Emperor Yan's help would also be a great help. Brother Chu, you're being too polite. If you and I join forces, how can I take all the benefits alone? Emperor Yan said with a smile. His words implied that he was going to join forces with Chu Fengmian to deal with Blood God Emperor Gu. It's okay. Consider this a greeting gift for Emperor Yan. Chu Fengmian said proudly. Now that he had obtained so many benefits, Blood God Emperor Gu's wealth was nothing to Chu Fengmian. It was better to rope in Emperor Yan. If that's the case, let's go and deal with Blood God Emperor Gu now. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. In his mind, he had already found the location of Blood God Emperor Gu. Blood God Emperor Gu, Judgment Emperor Gu, and Emperor Gu Shui Xen were all around a martial pagoda. The three of them had passed through the martial pagoda once and were trying to find other opportunities. However, they were trapped inside and were now looking for a way out. In this cave, Emperor Gu's actions were all under Chu Fengmian's control. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and a spatial tunnel was formed in front of him. It led directly to Blood God Emperor Gu's location. Emperor Yan, please. Control the space. Emperor Yan's eyes changed the moment he saw the spatial tunnel. The restriction of the Nine Xian Immortal Venerables Cave was something that even Emperor Gu could not touch, let alone control the surrounding space. Chapter 14:12. Brother Chu, did you get the inheritance of the 9 mystic celestial venerable? Emperor Yan was shocked when he saw that Chu Fengmian could directly control the seals in the 9 mystic celestial venerables cave mansion. It went without saying what it meant to be able to freely control the seals in the 9 mystic celestial venerables cave mansion. His mind was spinning rapidly. He seemed to know about the changes in the 9 mystic celestial venerables cave mansion. Obviously, it was because Chu Fengmian got the inheritance of the 9 mystic celestial venerable. Thinking of this, Emperor Yan looked at Chu Fengmian's eyes and kept thinking. Chu Fengmian's aptitude and strength were already enough for him to try to win him over. In the future, when Chu Fengmian stepped into the Emperor realm and became a peerless ancient emperor, it was almost certain. In the future, it might not be impossible for him to break through to the heaven realm. But now, Chu Fengmian got the inheritance of the 9 mystic celestial venerable. The famous 9 mystic celestial technique most likely fell into Chu Fengmian's hand. With Chu Fengmian's current martial Dao comprehension and the 9 mystic celestial technique, it was very likely that he would become the second 9 mystic celestial venerable in the future. Thinking of this, Emperor Yan was even more determined to rope Chu Fengmian in. Chu Fengmian was weak now. It was definitely better for him to help Chu Fengmian now than to rely on Chu Fengmian after he became a powerhouse in the future. Since Brother Chu has such means, the Blood God Emperor Gu won't be able to escape death today, Emperor Yan said with a laugh. His tone was much more cordial. Then, without hesitation, he stepped into the space tunnel. Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng followed closely behind. Looking at Emperor Yan's performance, Chu Fengmian was not surprised. He showed his strength to let Emperor Yan understand that only by standing with him was the right path. Now Chu Fengmian had countless enemies. Not only Chu Fengmian's enemies, but also many powerhouses that Chu Fengmian had met. They might want to kill Chu Fengmian. After all, Chu Fengmian's talent was too dazzling. No powerhouse wanted to be trampled under others' feet. Therefore, Chu Fengmian must build his own force. Emperor was Chu Fengmian's first target. Emperor Yan is a smart person. He knows how to make a choice. Qing Ming whispered from the side. When Chu Fengmian entered the martial pagoda, she had already asked the Yan Emperor a lot of questions. Originally, the Yan Emperor was still a little hesitant, but after seeing that Chu Fengmian had actually passed the 21st level of the martial pagoda, the Yan Emperor no longer hesitated and chose to stand with Chu Fengmian. Let's go and kill Blood God Emperor Gu first. Chu Fengmian said. As long as the blood god Emperor Gu was still alive, Chu Fengmian would never have peace. The three of them passed through the spatial tunnel and arrived outside a secret room. There were three figures standing in the secret chamber. They were the Emperor Gu of the Blood God, the Emperor Gu of the Water Faith, and the Emperor Gu of the Judiciary. The three emperors were none other than the Blood God Emperor Gu, the Emperor Gu of the Water Faith. The three of them clearly had a good relationship with each other, and were currently looking for a way out of the secret chamber. The door that led to the secret chamber was now completely shut. Even if the three of them worked together, they would not be able to break through the seal on the door. Brother Blood God, this secret chamber seems to have been sealed. There are no exits. Just now, there was a sudden change in the 9 mystic celestial reverend cave that sealed all the exit. The Water Faith Emperor Gu of the Water Faith said as he looked around the secret chamber, searching everywhere but to no avail. Someone must have broken the balance of the 9 mystic celestial reverend cave. The Judiciary Emperor Gu of the Judiciary looked around and said, "Could it be that someone has obtained the inheritance of the 9 mystic celestial reverend? It's easier said than done to obtain the inheritance of the 9 mystic celestial reverend." The Blood God Emperor Gu shook his head and said, "According to the ancient records, this is not the first time the 9 mystic celestial reverend cave has been opened. This is the 23rd time the 9 mystic celestial reverend cave has been opened. Even the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations did not obtain the inheritance. We're only here for the rewards of the martial pagoda." The Water Faith Emperor Gu and the Judiciary Emperor Gu of the Judiciary smiled when they mentioned the rewards of the martial pagoda. Obviously, both of them were satisfied with the rewards in the martial pagoda. "What should we do? Don't we have a way to leave?" The Judiciary Emperor Gu of the Judiciary said. "Wait. Something must have happened in the 9 mystic celestial reverend cave. However, it won't last long. Since we're trapped here, the others must be trapped too." The Blood God Emperor Gu sneered as killing intent flashed in his eyes. "Since we've obtained the treasure, the two of you will follow me to kill Chu Fengmian when we get out." The Blood God Emperor Gu gritted his teeth when he mentioned Chu Fengmian's name. He regretted not killing Chu Fengmian when they were outside. Today was the best chance to kill Chu Fengmian in the immortal burial continent. "I only want that little bastard's life. As for the opportunity, how about we split it equally?" "No problem," Ancient Emperor Shui Xian said with a smile. His eyes also flashed with joy. "I don't want that brat's opportunity. I only want to deal with Qing Meng. Don't kill her, just leave her to me. I was rejected when I proposed marriage to her. Today, what's done cannot be undone. All right, it's a deal. Qing Meng will be given to brother Shui Xian. As for that brat's opportunity, I'll split it equally with brother Blood God." The Emperor Gu of the Judiciary laughed. He had been drooling over Chu Fengmian's opportunity for a long time. "Really? What a boastful tone. However, you're all going to die soon. Why are you still boasting?" Rumble. Suddenly, a voice could be heard. Then, the sealed door of the secret chamber opened abruptly. 3 figures walked in. "Someone's here? Who's there?" The Emperor Gu of the Shui Faith, Emperor Gu of the Judiciary, and the others turned serious when they heard the voice. The Blood God Emperor Gu looked towards the direction of the voice. "Chu Fengmian?" Suddenly, the killing intent in the eyes of the Blood God Emperor Gu could no longer be contained. "It's you. Seems like the changes in the 9 mystic immortal sovereigns' cave abode were caused by you. I didn't expect you to obtain the inheritance of the 9 mystic immortal sovereign." "That's right," Chu Fengmian replied after hearing the words of the Blood God Emperor Gu. Since the 3 of them were already dead, there was no harm in telling them the truth. "Since the 3 of you are going to die here today, I'll let the 3 of you know what's going on. Junior brother, leave the Shui Faith Emperor Gu to me. I'll cripple his cultivation and torture him to death." Chapter 1413. Chu Fengmian and the other two overheard the conversation between Emperor Gu and Shui Exin. Upon hearing Emperor Gu's words, Qing Meng's face was immediately filled with murderous intent. She pointed at Emperor Gu and said, "Is that so? Qing Meng, do you think that you and this brat can make us your enemy?" Emperor Gu sneered at Qing Meng's words. "That's right. You and a brat with some fortuitous encounters in the quasi-emperor realm. You two dare to make us your enemy?" The ancient emperor of adjudication laughed disdainfully. Although Qing Meng's strength was at the peak of the 8 tribulations Emperor Gu's, the blood god Emperor Gu was also at the peak of the 8 tribulations Emperor Gu's strength. In terms of true strength, the blood god Emperor Gu was stronger than Qing Meng. After all, the blood god Emperor Gu was an expert who had been famous for a long time. His accumulation was something that Qing Meng could not compare to. As for Chu Fengmian, they did not take him seriously at all. He could only contend with the 8 tribulations Emperor Gu for a while. However, with the two of them working together, it would be a piece of cake for them to deal with Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng. "Brother Chu, how about letting me deal with the judgment Emperor Gu?" At this moment, another voice was heard. A figure walked out from behind Chu Fengmian. Upon seeing this figure, Emperor Gu and the others frowned. Emperor Yen? Their attention was focused on Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng. However, they did not notice that Emperor Yen had followed Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng into the secret chamber. Emperor Yen was also a famous powerhouse in the Daluo star field, so they were naturally familiar with him. "Emperor Yen, do you intend to make the Avalon of 5 elements your enemy?" Emperor Gu snorted coldly upon hearing Emperor Yan's words. "I thought you were a smart person. I didn't expect you to be so stupid. Aren't you seeking your own death by joining forces with this brat?" "That's right, Emperor Yen. Since we've met before, I'll give you a chance today. Join us. After we kill that brat, we can share some of the benefits with you." Emperor Gu of Shueixan looked at Emperor Yen and said. Emperor Yan's strength was not inferior to the 3 of them. If Emperor Yen joined Chu Fengmian's side, then Chu Fengmian's side would also have 3 Emperor Gu with 8 tribulations. Their advantage in numbers was gone. "Avalon of 5 elements? I, the Yen Emperor, do not put you in my eyes." Emperor Yen snorted coldly. Apparently, he was not afraid of this threat. He looked at Chu Fengmian and said, "Blood God Emperor Gu, Brother Chu, you deal with him. I'll help you kill this judgment Emperor Gu." "All right." Chu Fengmian nodded. "Little brat, do you really think that you can kill us just by relying on the help of these 2 trash?" Blood God Emperor Gu looked at Chu Fengmian and said with a sinister smile, "Last time, you were just lucky to escape. I didn't expect you to come to me again. What a coincidence. You got the inheritance of the 9 mystic celestial sovereign? After I kill you, the inheritance of the 9 mystic celestial sovereign will be mine. By then, this cave will be mine." Blood God Emperor Gu looked at Chu Fengmian and said with a sinister smile, "You probably don't know that you're already a dead man. I just wanted you to live a little longer. I didn't expect you to get the inheritance of the 9 mystic celestial sovereign. Now, it's time for you to die. Blood demonic seed. Explode." Boom. Suddenly, a blood chi shot up to the sky from Chu Fengmian's back. It was as if a demonic seed had been planted in Chu Fengmian's body. Under the command of blood god Emperor Gu, the demonic seed exploded immediately. The demonic seed continuously corroded Chu Fengmian's body, trying to turn Chu Fengmian into a slave of blood god Emperor Gu. Not good. Qing Meng and Emperor Yan's expression changed when they saw this scene. However, they didn't have the time to take action. The demonic seed that was corroding Chu Fengmian's back suddenly exploded. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and the demonic seed was extracted from Chu Fengmian's body. In Chu Fengmian's palm, he immediately crushed it. Blood God Emperor Gu, do you think I can't detect such a small demonic seed? Chu Fengmian looked at Blood God Emperor Gu and sneered. This demonic seed was planted in Chu Fengmian's body when he was in the river of blood. Chu Fengmian had noticed it long ago. However, he didn't do anything about it. Instead, he used the demonic seed to familiarize himself with Blood God Emperor Gu's power. Blood God Emperor Gu's Tao of blood was indeed very strange. However, Chu Fengmian was now completely familiar with Blood God Emperor Gu's power. In addition, Chu Fengmian had a fortuitous encounter in the martial pagoda. Today, Chu Fengmian was determined to kill Blood God Emperor Gu. Sword out. Chu Fengmian didn't hold back. With a thought, 2 spiritual swords flew out from the World's Edge sword box and into Chu Fengmian's palm. At the same time, the 2 streaks of sword chi were directed at the ancient emperor of the Blood God. Damn you little bastard! Kill! Blood God Emperor Gu was enraged. He didn't hold back anymore. An endless amount of blood chi condensed and turned into a sea of blood. This sea of blood was the condensation of all of Blood God Emperor Gu's power. It was also his strongest move. What kind of sword chi are you talking about? Devour it! Blood God Emperor Gu snorted in disdain as he faced the 2 sword chi. Suddenly, the sea of blood engulfed the 2 sword chi and struck the sea of blood. The sea of blood was boundless. Any attack that entered the sea of blood would be dissolved by the power of the sea of blood. Once a martial artist was engulfed by the sea of blood, it would be extremely difficult for him to escape. This was definitely a move that could be used both offensively and defensively. While Chu Fengmian and Blood God Emperor Gu were fighting, Qing Meng and Emperor Yan also found their respective opponents and started to fight. In an instant, countless forces started to collide fiercely in the secret chamber. They were all merciless with their killing move. Little bastard, do you still have the mood to care about others? Blood sea wave. Rumble. 1,000-foot wave surged in the sea of blood and roared towards Chu Fengmian, as if it was going to engulf him. Chu Fengmian had already experienced the power of the sea of blood outside the cave of the 9 mystic celestial master. At that time, if it wasn't for Qing Meng, Chu Fengmian wouldn't have been able to escape from the sea of blood. However, the current Chu Fengmian was different from before. The training in the martial pagoda had allowed Chu Fengmian's strength to reach a new level. Let's use you to test the 3 moves that I have recently comprehended. Chu Fengmian looked at the sea of blood and snorted coldly. Chapter 14:14. Boom. Chu Fengmian's sword will soared into the sky, and stars appeared in the sky. The power of the stars flowed into the sword in Chu Fengmian's hand. The first move of the 9 profound immortal art, Greedy Wolf. During the battle between Chu Fengmian and the 9 profound immortal sovereign, Chu Fengmian integrated the 9 profound swordsmanship into his swordsmanship. He used his swordsmanship to activate the power of the 9 profound immortal art. With a slash, the power of the stars flowed into Chu Fengmian's body, and the sword slashed towards the sea of blood. Boom! The waves on the sea of blood were shattered by the slash, and the entire sea of blood began to tremble, as if it was going to be torn apart by the power of the slash. Blood God Emperor Gu hastily gathered his spiritual energy and injected it into the sea of blood to prevent it from shattering. However, in this clash, Chu Fengmian had nearly shattered the sea of blood. What kind of swordsmanship is this? The power of the stars? Little bastard, how can you have such power? Blood God Emperor Gu took a few steps back, and shouted in disbelief at the power of Chu Fengmian's sword. Even he could not see the profoundness of the slash. Even with his strength as an 8 tribulations Emperor Gu, he could not see the profoundness of the slash. 9 profound immortal art, this is the 9 profound immortal art. Suddenly, the blood god ancient emperor seemed to have thought of something. His face was filled with disbelief as he shouted. The Tao of stars, such a profound Tao of stars, he could only think of one possibility. The 9 profound immortal art. Only the 9 profound immortal art could have such power. The 9 profound immortal art. How can you have the 9 profound immortal art? Blood God Emperor Gu roared crazily. Many Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu did not have the chance to obtain the inheritance of the Nine Profound Immortal Sovereign, but Chu Fengmian did. At the same time, the Blood God Ancient Emperor's body suddenly moved. He waved his hand and the sea of blood started to churn. Several figures appeared in the blood ocean. At a glance there were at least 10 million of them. Chu Fengmian could see that they were powerful cultivators when they were alive. Some of them were even Six Tribulation true emperors. But now they had been killed by the Blood God Emperor Gu. Their essence blood had fused with the Blood Sea, and they had become blood slaves of the Blood Sea. Little bastard, in order to deal with you, I killed all the disciples of the Blood God Hall. You probably never dreamed that I had such a move. So what if you have the Nine Profound Sword technique? After I kill you, the Nine Mystic Immortal Art will belong to me. Blood Thrall. Rumble. Under the command of Blood God Emperor Gu, the blood slaves in the Blood Sea became frantic and rushed towards Chu Fengmian. Many of the blood thralls self-detonated as soon as they got close to Chu Fengmian. Their blood energy transformed into deadly toxins that began to corrode Chu Fengmian's body. Such a vicious method. Chu Fengmian frowned when he heard the Blood God Ancient Emperor's words. These blood slaves were actually disciples of the Blood God Palace, which meant that they were the disciples of the Blood God Ancient Emperor. But now they had been killed by Emperor Gu and became blood slaves in the Blood Sea. Chu Fengmian wouldn't kill his own disciples even if he had killed countless people. Vicious? These losses are nothing as long as I kill you. Once I get the Nine Profound Immortal Art, I can rebuild 10 Blood God Halls. The Blood God Ancient Emperor said viciously. Die, you little bastard! The Blood God Ancient Emperor ordered loudly. Instantly, dozens of blood slaves flew out from the Blood Sea. Under Emperor Gu's command, they didn't care about anything else and got close to Chu Fengmian. They would explode as soon as they got close. Nine Profound Gate. The moment the blood thralls rushed over, the sword in his hand moved again. The power of the stars in the sky was infused into the sword, and the sword was slashed out. The sword aura turned into a river of stars in front of Chu Fengmian. All the blood thralls rushed into the river of stars and were crushed by the power of the stars. Although Chu Fengmian wasn't as proficient in the Nine Profound Immortal Art, it was still much stronger than countless heaven-level martial techniques even if he could only use 30% of its power. An immortal art was an immortal art after all. Chu Fengmian's martial path had reached the celestial realm. He was strong enough to use the Nine Profound Immortal Art. Destroy! After killing all the blood slaves that had rushed over, Chu Fengmian pointed the tip of his sword and sent the river of stars straight towards the sea of blood. Chu Fengmian could see that the Blood Sea was Blood God Emperor Gu's strongest move. It was also his trump card. Once he destroyed the Blood Sea, Blood God Emperor Gu would have no chance to struggle. Damn it! You want to destroy the Blood Sea? Then I'll kill you first. Blood God Emperor Gu saw through Chu Fengmian's plan. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as his body flashed and he appeared beside Chu Fengmian. He gathered blood energy in his hands and turned them into 2 bloody hands. He grabbed at Chu Fengmian. Bloody hand destruction. Even without the Blood Sea, Blood God Emperor Gu was still an 8 Tribulation Emperor Gu. He could unleash an extremely powerful attack. As for Chu Fengmian, he didn't condense his spiritual energy as the bloody hand approached. Instead, a smile appeared on his face. His palm flashed and a figure suddenly appeared in Chu Fengmian's palm. Then, he threw the figure at the ancient Blood God Emperor. What are you? How dare you stop me? The ancient divine blood ancient monarch waved his hand and shattered the figure into pieces with a single slap. However, Blood God Emperor Gu's expression changed drastically when he heard the figure's dying scream. This was because the scream didn't belong to anyone else. It belonged to Blood Prince. I wanted to return your son to you, but it seems like you don't need him anymore. Chu Fengmian looked at Blood God Emperor Gu and smiled coldly. Little bastard. I want you dead. I'll extract your soul and refine it. I'll make you suffer all the pain in the world. The ancient emperor of the blood divine ancient emperor was furious to the extreme. He was mad and reckless. The blood sea was boiling because of the ancient emperor of the blood divine ancient emperor's anger. It covered Chu Fengmian from all directions. Is that so? Can't you see that I'm just toying with you? Chu Fengmian looked at the ancient emperor of the blood god and smirked as he raised the sword in his hand. Forget it. I'm not going to waste my time with you. Sword Connecting God. Jian Zhanxian. Chapter 14-15. Jian Zhanxian Golden Sword. This was the newest move that Feng Mian had comprehended from the martial pagoda. At this moment, the golden sword was condensed. The dazzling golden light made it impossible for people to see the scene of the golden sword being displayed. The power of this move was the most powerful among the countless sword techniques in Chu Feng Mian's 9-domain sword technique. At this moment, Chu Feng Mian seemed to have become the embodiment of the sword Dao. He was the supreme sword Dao. Boom! The golden sword slashed down and slashed into the sea of blood. The huge sea of blood was split into two by the power of the golden sword. At the same time, the countless blood slaves in the sea of blood were swept away by the sword Qi. Under the power of the golden sword, the entire sea of blood was evaporated and split into pieces. In an instant, the greatest trump card of Blood God Emperor Gu, the sea of blood, was destroyed in the air. Blood God Emperor Gu's body retreated continuously. He wanted to escape, but Chu Feng Mian would not give him the chance. Chu Feng Mian's figure flashed and waved his right hand. It turned into a huge dragon claw and clawed at Blood God Emperor Gu. As the dragon claw enveloped Blood God Emperor Gu, Chu Feng Mian crushed the spiritual energy barrier on his body. He was caught in Chu Feng Mian's palm. No matter how Blood God Emperor Gu resisted, he could not escape from Chu Feng Mian's palm. Chu Feng Mian exerted force in his palm. Blood God Emperor Gu's body suddenly swelled and was crushed into a cloud of blood mist in the air. Chu Feng Mian's mind moved and activated the sky-devouring secret technique. It turned into a whirlpool and engulfed over. All the blood qi was devoured and turned into nourishment for the divine tree. 8 calamities Emperor Gu, Blood God Emperor Gu, fell just like that. Chu Feng Mian clenched his hand and the empty ring of Blood God Emperor Gu fell into Chu Feng Mian's palm. It's finally settled. After killing Blood God Emperor Gu, Chu Fengmian's expression also relaxed quite a bit. This huge threat had finally been dealt with today. After killing Blood God Emperor Gu, Chu Fengmian shifted his gaze to the side. The battle between Qing Meng and Shui Xian Emperor Gu had come to an end. Qing Meng's strength had already reached the peak of the 8 tribulations Emperor Gu. Compared to Emperor Gu Shui Xian, she was much stronger. Under Qing Meng's continuous attacks, Emperor Gu Shui Xian could no longer hold on. Emperor Gu had been searching for an opportunity to escape countless times, but this secret chamber had long been sealed off by Chu Fengmian's restrictions. No matter how strong the Shui Xian Emperor Gu was, he couldn't escape. Under Qing Meng's continuous attacks, the Shui Xian Emperor Gu couldn't hold on any longer and was killed by a green light. His blood and qi had been completely destroyed by the green light, and there was no chance of him coming back to life. On the other side, Emperor Yan had also finished off Emperor Gu of Judgment. Emperor Yan's strength was originally on par with Emperor Gu of Judgment. However, Emperor Yan had gained a lot from the martial pagoda. The ring that Emperor Yan had obtained from the martial pagoda was enough to increase his strength by 50%, far surpassing that of Emperor Gu of Judgment. Emperor Gu of Judgment was also killed by Emperor Yan. All 3 8 tribulations Emperor Gu had fallen. If this news were to spread, it would probably cause a huge commotion. 8 tribulations Emperor Gu was already a high and mighty figure. Without any accidents, it was unlikely that he would fall. Avalon of 5 elements, in particular, lost 2 8 tribulations Emperor Gu in one go. They would probably go crazy. However, the 4 major forces had always been enemies. Even if Chu Fengmian killed them in the immortal burial continent, no one would know that it was Chu Fengmian who did it. The blood god Emperor Gu has so much wealth. Chu Fengmian opened the blood god Emperor Gu's empty ring and took a look. Even with Chu Fengmian's knowledge, he was still amazed by the wealth inside. The blood god Emperor Gu's wealth was much greater than what Chu Fengmian had imagined. It could even be compared to a few palaces in the 9 mystic celestial venerables' treasury. If Chu Fengmian hadn't obtained the 9 mystic celestial venerables' treasury, this wealth alone would be a huge sum to him. The blood god Emperor Gu controlled the blood god temple. Now that the temple has been destroyed by him, I'm afraid all the wealth inside has fallen into the hands of the blood god Emperor Gu. Qing Meng, who was at the side, took a look and handed over an empty ring. It was the Shui Xian Emperor Gu's empty ring. However, Chu Fengmian didn't take it. The Shui Xian Emperor Gu was killed by senior sister. His empty ring belongs to senior sister, Chu Fengmian said with a smile. At the same time, he looked at the Yen Emperor and said, "The Judgment Emperor Gu's empty ring. The Yen Emperor should also take it." When Qing Meng and the Yen Emperor heard this, they looked at each other and hesitated. Although the Shui Xian Emperor Gu and the Judgment Emperor Gu were killed by the 2 of them, the one who contributed the most was Chu Fengmian. If Chu Fengmian hadn't sealed the secret room, the 2 of them wouldn't have been able to kill the 2 Emperor Gu so easily. Any ancient emperor would have extremely strong life-saving abilities. Chu Fengmian had sealed off this area of the spatial ring, making it impossible for them to escape. That was why Qing Meng and the Yen Emperor were able to kill the 2 Emperor Gu. If they were outside, the 2 of them would be able to defeat the 2 Emperor Gu, but it would be difficult to kill them. I've already gained a lot of benefits in the 9 mystic immortal sovereigns' cave abode. This amount of wealth is nothing, Chu Fengmian said with a smile when he saw the 2 of them hesitating. Hearing this, the hesitation in the eyes of Qing Meng and the Yen Emperor disappeared. "All right. Thank you, Brother Chu." The Yen Emperor was the first to speak. He wasn't the Emperor Gu of the 4 major forces. In terms of wealth, he wasn't as rich as Qing Meng and the others. The wealth in the Judgment Emperor Gu's empty ring was of great use to him. Now that he had made up his mind to follow Chu Fengmian, he wouldn't refuse and accept it. Qing Meng was the same. The 2 of them didn't have Chu Fengmian's holy veins and had endless wealth. For many Emperor Gu, their wealth wasn't even enough for their own cultivation. Now that they had a large amount of wealth, they were naturally happy. "Brother Chu, if you need me in the future, please let me know." The Yen Emperor looked at Chu Fengmian and said with a smile, "Emperor Yen, are you interested in cooperating with me again?" Chu Fengmian said with a smile when he heard the Yen Emperor's words. "Let's work together again?" The Yen Emperor asked doubtfully. "That's right." Chu Fengmian nodded and looked at Qing Meng. "Now that the cave abode is under our control, we can't let those Emperor Gu go. Senior sister, there are many Emperor Gu who have a grudge against our holy dragon sect." "Junior brother, you mean?" Qing Meng's eyes lit up when she heard this. She guessed Chu Fengmian's thoughts. "Since we're in the immortal burial continent, we might as well go all the way. Those Emperor Gu who are enemies of our holy dragon sect would be a disaster if we let them out. Why don't we eliminate them all?" Chapter 14-16. Chu Fengmian had sensed blood god Emperor Gu's presence outside the 9 mystic celestial sovereigns' cave. Many of the Emperor Gu were hostile towards Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng, but they did not act rashly. Now, these people were trapped in the 9 mystic celestial sovereigns' cave. Chu Fengmian had the ability to control the cave's restrictions. If he let these people go, sooner or later, they would be a disaster. He might as well go all the way and kill them all. Emperor Yen and Qing Meng had guessed Chu Fengmian's intention after hearing his words, but they still shuddered. These people were Emperor Gu. Many of them were 8 calamities Emperor Gu. They were people with high status in the 4 major forces. Now, Chu Fengmian wanted to kill them all. After this is done, all the wealth will be divided equally among the 3 of us. Chu Fengmian said as he glanced at Qing Meng and Emperor Yin. Senior sister, Emperor Yin, what do you think? All right. Qing Meng thought for a while and nodded. Chu Fengmian's words were reasonable. These people would be a disaster sooner or later if they were released. Since they were in the immortal burial continent, no one would know if they killed 1 or 2 of them. They could use this opportunity to kill all the enemies in the cave. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Right now, these ancient emperors had been separated by Chu Fengmian. There were at most 3 ancient emperors in each region. With the 3 of them working together, they would be able to defeat the ancient emperors. It would be easy to kill those Emperor Gu. I agree. Emperor Yin thought for a while and nodded in agreement. After killing the ancient Emperor of Judgment and obtaining the ancient Emperor of Judgment's spatial ring, he had tasted the sweetness of victory. Even if he had hundreds of years, it would be difficult for him to accumulate so much wealth. Under the temptation of such great wealth, it was worth a try even if it was dangerous. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had already controlled the restrictions of the 9 mystic celestial sovereigns' cave. There was no danger for the 3 of them. The Yen Emperor was also willing to participate in this kind of sure-win business. Alright, senior sister, you can choose who we'll deal with first. Seeing that the 2 of them had agreed, Chu Fengmian gathered his spiritual power, and an image suddenly appeared in front of him. It was the map of the entire 9 mystic celestial highness cave. Every secret chamber was clearly visible. At the same time, every action of Emperor Gu in the 9 mystic celestial venerates cave abode could be seen. This is Emperor Gu Wani and Emperor Gu Zhongkong from the Avalon of 5 Elements. The Avalon of 5 Elements has been our Holy Dragon Sect's enemy for generations. 3 of our Holy Dragon Sect's disciples died at their hands. Qing Meng pointed in the direction of a secret chamber, where 2-8 Tribulation Emperor Gu were. Once, eldest senior brother killed his way into the Avalon of 5 Elements and killed several Emperor Gu. Initially, the Avalon of 5 Elements was peaceful for a while, but ever since eldest senior brother disappeared, the Avalon of 5 Elements has been targeting our Holy Dragon Sect. When mentioning the Avalon of 5 Elements, the murderous intent in Qing Meng's eyes was incomparably fierce. Obviously, they had a blood feud with the Avalon of 5 Elements. There were only a few disciples in the Holy Dragon Sect, and 3 of them had died at the hands of the Avalon of 5 Elements. It was indeed a blood feud. Alright, these 2 must die today. Chu Fengmian listened to Qing Meng's words and nodded. He was now a disciple of the Holy Dragon Sect, and he had the obligation to help the Holy Dragon Sect eliminate their enemies. Moreover, many of these people wanted to kill Chu Fengmian as soon as possible. Chu Fengmian killed them to protect himself. Those are the 2 Emperor Gu from Vast Ocean City. They also have a grudge with our Holy Dragon Sect. That is the Huaihua Volcano Lord. He once tried to kill me in the 9 mystic celestial venerates cave abode. Besides Chu Fengmian and the other 2, there were a total of 15 Emperor Gu. A total of 9 Emperor Gu had a grudge with the Holy Dragon Sect. It was no wonder that they were so hostile towards Chu Fengmian. Alright, let's kill them one by one today. Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed a murderous intent. Chu Fengmian was never merciful towards his enemies. Let's go. Let's deal with the 2 Emperor Gu from the Avalon of 5 Elements first. Chu Fengmian's mind flickered, and a space tunnel appeared instantly. Chu Fengmian and the other 2 stepped into it and arrived at the secret chamber. Who is it? Emperor Gu from Wani and Emperor Gu from Zhongkong were also in the secret chamber, trying to find a way to leave. Suddenly, the 2 of them sensed a fluctuation of spiritual energy. Then, a figure suddenly appeared in the secret chamber. This caused the expressions of the 2 of them to immediately become tense. You are? the lad from the Holy Dragon sect? After sizing up the newcomer, the two of them suddenly changed their expressions. Then, they burst into laughter. Great, the two of us were worried that we couldn't find you. We didn't expect you to deliver yourself to us. Kill. Without the slightest hesitation, the two ancient emperors attacked Chu Fengmian with countless attacks. Senior sister, Emperor Yan, go and deal with Emperor Gu from Zhongkong. Chu Fengmian sneered when he saw the two of them charging towards him. Immediately, two figures flew out from behind Chu Fengmian and charged at ancient Emperor Zhongkong, unleashing a series of killing moves. Qing Meng? Emperor Yan. Seeing the arrival of the two, Emperor Gu from Zhongkong and Emperor Gu from Wani changed their expressions and said immediately, "Oh no, run." If Chu Fengmian was alone, they would definitely kill him without hesitation. However, with Qing Meng and Emperor Yan, it was a different story. The two of them were also decisive. Seeing that the situation was not good, they immediately ran away. Trying to escape? Seal off. Chu Fengmian sneered. With a shift of his mind, he controlled the surrounding seals and sealed off all the exit. At the same time, Chu Fengmian attacked. He aimed his sword at Emperor Gu from Wanluo and slashed towards him. "Damn little bastard, I'll fight you to the death." Emperor Gu from Wanluo roared and used his killer move. Suddenly, a sky full of fist wind fell from the sky and attacked Chu Fengmian. Jiuxuan, greedy wolf. Chu Fengmian pointed his sword and gathered the power of the stars, turning it into a sword qi that swept across. At this moment, the sky full of fist wind was completely destroyed by the sword qi. Then, the sword qi entered Emperor Gu's body and exploded. Emperor Gu's body exploded in the sky. His essence and blood were mercilessly devoured by the sky-devouring secret technique. Among the essence and blood, only an empty ring was left. Chu Fengmian grabbed it and took it away. Although Emperor Gu's wealth was not as great as Blood God Emperor Gu's, he was still considered a rich man. They had obtained a lot of treasures in the immortal burial continent. They were not in a hurry to exchange these treasures. Now all of them had fallen into Chu Fengmian's hands. Chapter 14-17. After killing Emperor Gu of Wanluo and Emperor Gu of Zhongkong, Chu Fengmian let Qing Meng and Emperor Yan rest for a while. Then, he opened a space tunnel and went to the next secret chamber. Emperor Gu of the 9 mystic celestial masters' cave abode had been sealed in secret chambers by Chu Fengmian. He was like a turtle in a jar. Chu Fengmian was not worried that someone would be able to break the 9 mystic celestial masters' seal. After gaining control of the 9 mystic celestial masters' cave abode, he knew the power of the seal. Even a 9 tribulations Emperor Gu would not be able to break the seal if he entered. Unless several 9 tribulations Emperor Gu joined forces, or even a half-step celestial being would be able to break the seal. As for the group of 8 tribulation ancient emperors, it was impossible for them to escape. Boom! In a secret chamber, a dazzling sword light flashed. Another Emperor Gu exploded in the air, turned into a cloud of blood mist, and was devoured by the sky-devouring secret technique. After killing an Emperor Gu, Chu Fengmian sat on the ground, closed his eyes and continued to comprehend his sword principle. Chu Fengmian's sword principle had already reached an incredible level. However, if he wanted to fully display his sword principle, he still had to go through many battles. These 8 tribulations Emperor Gu became Chu Fengmian's targets to practice his sword principle. Chu Fengmian gained a lot from every battle. His sword principle was getting more and more mature. As for Qing Meng, Luo Kong and the others, they also killed many Emperor Gu and took their empty rings for themselves. They gained a lot of benefits. Now, they were sitting in front of Chu Fengmian and distributing their wealth. Those Emperor Gu who were able to come to the 9 mystic celestial masters' cave abode must have obtained a lot of treasures in the immortal burial continent. Qing Meng and Emperor Yan were full of smiles when they saw the wealth in the empty rings. Chu Fengmian sat on the ground. The sword intent on his body kept churning. There was even a shadow formed by the sword intent behind him. This shadow was right behind Chu Fengmian, constantly performing swordsmanship and practicing swordsmanship over and over again. He is only a quasi-emperor and he already has such terrifying strength. I wonder how terrifying he will be when he breaks through the emperor realm. Emperor Yen looked at Chu Fengmian and sighed. If he did not see it with his own eyes, he would not believe that there was such a monster like Chu Fengmian in this world. Chu Fengmian was a monster. At that time, Emperor Yen thought Chu Fengmian had thought. At that time, Emperor Yen felt that Chu Fengmian was a monster. Chu Fengmian Emperor Yen. And the Emperor Yen was to the Yen, and Emperor to Yen and Emperor Yen. Tus to Tefongyen Tus. Was. Although the reason why they could easily kill Emperor Gu was related to the restriction in the 9 mystic immortal venerable cave mansion, it at least meant that Chu Fengmian now had the strength to defeat Emperor Yen. Emperor Yen had seen Yun Zun in the past. He was far from being as monstrous as Chu Fengmian. Boom! Just as the Yen Emperor was thinking, the figure condensed from the sword intent behind Chu Fengmian's back slowly dissipated. The sword will on Chu Fengmian's body gradually dissipated, and he opened his eyes. Not bad. I have almost completely comprehended the first 3 moves of the 9 mystic immortal technique and integrated them into my sword principle. You can now display 80% of its true power. Chu Fengmian exhaled and felt the power of the stars on his sword. Chu Fengmian practiced his sword principle again and again. He practiced the first 3 moves of the 9 mystic sword principle the most. Chu Fengmian had integrated the first 3 moves into the 9 domains sword principle. In the beginning, Chu Fengmian could only display 50% of its power. Now, he could display 80% of the power of the 9 mystic immortal technique. This was a great improvement. After all, only the creator could display the full power of a martial technique. As for others, even if they obtained it, it was not easy to display 70% of its power. Moreover, this was a profound immortal technique. Although it was only the first 3 moves, Chu Fengmian could already display 80% of its power. It was already very shocking. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had integrated the 9 mystic immortal technique into his sword principle. Only Chu Fengmian, who had reached the peak of sword principle, could do so. The last 4 moves of the 9 mystic immortal technique are much more difficult than the first 3 moves. I should leave the immortal burial continent and go to a quiet place to comprehend them. Chu Fengmian stopped practicing. The last 4 moves of the 9 mystic immortal technique were completely different from the first 3 moves. After all, the first 3 moves of the 9 mystic immortal technique were created by the 9 mystic immortal venerable when he was still the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. Therefore, it was not difficult for Chu Fengmian to comprehend them. However, the last 4 moves of the 9 mystic immortal technique were created by the 9 mystic immortal venerable when he was still in the heavenly human realm. Whether it was the power or the difficulty, it was completely different from the first 3 moves. Chu Fengmian would not be able to comprehend it in a short time. He did not intend to waste time here. The 9 Emperor Gu have been killed. We can leave now. The 9 Emperor Gu and the 9 mystic immortal venerables cave abode, who had some enmity with the Holy Dragon sect, were all dead. As for the remaining 6 Emperor Gu, they had no enmity with the Holy Dragon sect. Chu Fengmian was not a person who would kill the innocent. Naturally, he would not attack them. Now, there was no point in staying in the 9 mystic immortal venerables cave abode. Let's go, Chu Fengmian said. With a thought, he opened a gap in the restriction. The remaining 6 Emperor Gu hurriedly left when they saw the opening. They did not want to be trapped in the 9 mystic immortal venerables cave abode. Chu Fengmian also used his conveyance light to leave the cave abode. Qing Meng and Emperor Yen also did not stay. They also used their conveyance light to leave. Outside the 9 mystic immortal venerables cave abode, countless martial artists and demon immortals had yet to leave. They were staring at the entrance of the 9 mystic immortal venerables' cave abode. Seeing that the restriction at the entrance had suddenly disappeared, countless martial artists and demon immortals rushed into the 9 mystic immortal venerables' cave abode. Suddenly, a large number of martial artists and demon immortals rushed into the 9 mystic immortal venerables' cave abode. Chu Fengmian could still hear the excited voices of the martial artists and demon immortals. Obviously, they wanted to see if there were any treasures left behind. Chapter 14:18. In the extraterritorial starry sky, on a floating rock, Chu Fengmian sat on the ground and cultivated with his legs crossed. Behind him, the power of the stars constantly emerged. Behind Chu Fengmian, waves of spiritual energy formed a miniature star domain. After leaving the immortal burial continent, few people in the extraterritorial starry sky could discover the existence of this rock. Under the protection of Qing Meng and Emperor Yan, Chu Fengmian began to comprehend the 9 profound immortal technique. Chu Fengmian had almost comprehended the first 3 moves of the 9 profound immortal technique. Merely comprehending them was not enough to improve the first 3 moves of the 9 profound immortal technique. Now Chu Fengmian had comprehended the 4th move of the 9 profound immortal technique, literary tune. Time flew. After half an hour, Chu Fengmian slowly opened his eyes. The star power behind him had also shattered. The 4th move of the 9 profound immortal technique is indeed much more difficult than the first 3 moves. Chu Fengmian stood up and could not help but sigh in his heart. When he comprehended the first 3 moves of the 9 profound immortal technique, he did not obtain the 9 profound immortal technique. He comprehended it during the battle with the 9 profound immortal senior. However, Chu Fengmian had already obtained the 4th move of the 9 profound immortal technique. The various mysteries of the 9 profound immortal technique were already displayed in front of Chu Fengmian. However, comprehending the 4th move was also much more difficult than the first 3 moves. Chu Fengmian comprehended it for half an hour but still could not get started. It was impossible to use it in a battle. After all, it is a sword technique created by the 9 profound immortal senior when he was in the heaven realm. It is difficult for me to comprehend it with my current realm. Chu Fengmian sighed. His realm was still too low. Now that he was in the quasi-emperor realm, his strength had increased. Once Chu Fengmian stepped into the emperor realm, it would be much easier for him to comprehend the 9 profound immortal technique. However, Chu Fengmian still felt that his strength had not reached the peak yet. The more he accumulated in the quasi-emperor realm, the greater the benefits he would get when he stepped into the emperor realm. Chu Fengmian wanted to wait until his strength reached the peak before he planned to make a breakthrough. When I return to the Sacred Dragon Secret Domain, I will comprehend the Sacred Dragon Secret Domain. Especially now that I can release the 2nd move at will, I can comprehend the 3rd move. Chu Fengmian thought. In the Sacred Dragon Mystery Domain, the thing that had helped Chu Fengmian the most was the statue of primogenitor Tianlong. Now, it was extremely easy for Chu Fengmian to execute the 2nd move of the primogenitor. Chu Fengmian could also find a chance to study the 3rd move of the primogenitor. How is junior brother? Qing Meng asked when she saw Chu Fengmian wake up. I've gained a lot this time, but it'll take some time before I can fully convert it for my own use. Chu Fengmian said. On this trip to the immortal burial continent, Chu Fengmian had already gained enough benefit. When Chu Fengmian had just arrived at the immortal burial continent, he could barely fight against the 7 Tribulation Emperor Gu. Now, he could even defeat the 8 Tribulation Emperor Gu. In some environments, he could even kill the 8 Tribulation Emperor Gu. This kind of strength was already inconceivable. The so-called first place of the great overarching genius ranking couldn't even withstand a single move from Chu Fengmian. I've also gained quite a bit. I can return to the Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension and go into seclusion. Within the Holy Dragon sect, There are restrictions set up by generations of Holy Dragon sect experts. No one can enter. It's very safe for us to cultivate inside. Qing Meng said. She had also gained a lot in this trip to the Immortal Burial Continent. Although it wasn't as good as Chu Fengmian's, she had also obtained the wealth of several Eight Tribulation Emperor Gu. There were many treasures among the wealth that were of great use to Qing Meng. Of course, Qing Meng's greatest gain was the Primitive Emperor Pill. If Qing Meng made good use of the Primitive Emperor Pill, she would have a chance to directly step into the Nine Tribulation Emperor Gu's realm. It's time to return to the Sacred Dragon Mystery Domain. Chu Fengmian nodded. He indeed needed to find a safe place to cultivate in seclusion. Moreover, Chu Fengmian's current strength was enough to become a chosen. After becoming a chosen, Chu Fengmian could go to the sacred ground of the Sacred Dragon Mystery Domain to look for Han Yueli and Luoshi. What's your plan, Emperor Yan? Chu Fengmian turned to look at Emperor Yan and asked. I'm still preparing to return to the Yanzhou continent. Emperor Yan said. He was the ruler of the Yanzhou continent. The Yanzhou continent was his base camp. Brother Chu, if you need anything in the future, just let me know. Emperor Yan had also gained a lot from following Chu Fengmian this time. After seeing Chu Fengmian's potential, Emperor Yan had already made up his mind to stand by Chu Fengmian's side. Alright, then we'll part ways here. Chu Fengmian moved his palm and a jade talisman suddenly appeared. He handed it to Emperor Yan. Emperor Yan, if you need anything, you can come to me at any time. Alright. Emperor Yan took the jade talisman and nodded. Then, he turned into a ray of light and flew across the starry sky. Senior sister, let's get ready to leave. Chu Fengmian looked at Qing Meng and said. This time, the biggest treasure in the Immortal Burial Continent was the cave of the 9 mystic celestial sovereign. Chu Fengmian had already obtained it. According to the pattern of the opening of the treasures in the Immortal Burial Continent, there shouldn't be any other big treasures to fight for. As for the remaining small treasures, Chu Fengmian wasn't interested in them. This time, Chu Fengmian had obtained all the treasures in the cave of the 9 mystic celestial sovereign. Chu Fengmian wasn't interested in those small treasures. However, Chu Fengmian felt it was a pity that the Cave of Sword Immortal Sky Horizon wasn't open this time. Chu Fengmian used the Sky Edge Sword Box to sense that the Cave of Sword Immortal Sky Horizon wasn't open this time. There were countless hidden treasures in the Immortal Burial Continent. One would only have a chance to obtain them if they opened them. If they didn't open them, even a heavenly being wouldn't be able to take them by force. As such, there was no point in staying in the Immortal Burial Continent. Let's go back to the Sacred Dragon's secret realm. After saying that, Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng turned into 2 rays of light and flew towards Sky Corner City. Using the teleportation formation in Sky Corner City, Chu Fengmian quickly returned to the Sacred Dragon's secret realm. Along the way, Chu Fengmian heard a lot of discussions about the opening of the Cave of the 9 Mystic Celestial Sovereign and the death of some experts in the Immortal Burial Continent. Every year, there were many martial artists and demon gods who died in the Immortal Burial Continent. This time, at least 30% of the disciples who went to the Sacred Dragon's secret realm died. Chapter 14:19. Of course, the person who benefited the most from the opening of the Immortal Burial Continent was none other than Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian had obtained the 9 Profound Celestial Masters' inheritance, the 9 Profound Celestial Masters' 9 Profound Celestial Masters' Cave Mansion. All the treasures in the 9 Profound Celestial Masters' Cave Mansion belonged to Chu Fengmian. Even if others obtained 100 or 1,000 treasures, they would not be as good as Chu Fengmian. I'm accumulating my strength. The moment I step into the Emperor realm will be the moment I'm truly invincible. Chu Fengmian's eyes were sharp. Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng returned to the Holy Dragon secret realm and flew toward the Holy Dragon sect without looking back. However, when the two of them arrived at the foot of the Holy Dragon sect, they suddenly saw countless Holy Dragon secret realm disciples surrounding the Holy Dragon sect. They surrounded the Holy Dragon sect and sealed it off. What's going on? Qing Meng frowned when she saw this. The Holy Dragon sect was the leader of the 4 sects and had a high status in the Holy Dragon secret realm. How dare someone seal off the Holy Dragon sect today? Let's go and take a look. Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed a hint of anger. He had already regarded himself as a disciple of the Holy Dragon sect. Seeing that someone had sealed off the Holy Dragon sect, he was extremely angry. He immediately activated his escape light and flew over. Just as Chu Fengmian's escape light approached the Holy Dragon sect, a few escape lights suddenly flew over and stopped Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng. Stop! This place is sealed off by the Law Enforcement Hall. No one is allowed to come close. Those who come close will be killed without mercy. One of the Law Enforcement Hall disciples snorted coldly at Qing Meng and Chu Fengmian. What? Get out of here! A puny boundary emperor dares to stay here? If you continue to stay here, you'll be violating the sect rules. I'll send you to the Law Enforcement Hall to receive your punishment. Although the Law Enforcement Hall was one of the 8 halls, they had the authority to enforce the law among the disciples of the Holy Dragon secret realm. Therefore, they were extremely arrogant. Seeing that Chu Fengmian was only a boundary emperor, they shouted sternly. The Law Enforcement Hall dares to seal off the Holy Dragon sect? Qing Meng heard the disciples' words. She whispered to Chu Fengmian. She thought that this was done by the 6th sect. After all, she and Chu Fengmian had killed everyone from the Mu family. Chu Fengmian Boundary Emperor was the Holy Dragon's secret realm. A small law enforcement hall. They definitely have some backing behind them. Chu Fengmian replied. No matter who it is, we must make them pay the price for daring to attack our Holy Dragon sect. Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng's conversation was carried out using their spiritual senses. In the eyes of the Law Enforcement Hall disciple, it was as if the 2 of them had ignored his words. Where did this brat come from? You don't even listen to the words of the Law Enforcement Hall? Cram. A tribulation true Emperor disciple became impatient and channeled his spirit energy, aiming for Chu Fengmian with a punch. Scram! Boom! As the palm approached Chu Fengmian, he snorted coldly and slapped out with his palm. The Law Enforcement Hall disciple was immediately sent flying. The power of this palm hit the internal organs of the Law Enforcement Hall disciple, shattering his spiritual meridians and causing him to lose consciousness. Even if he recovered from his injuries, the destruction of his spiritual meridians was enough to prevent him from advancing any further in the future. He would only be a tribulation true emperor for the rest of his life. For a disciple of the Sacred Dragon's secret realm, if they were unable to advance any further, they would no longer receive any grooming in the future and their status would plummet. Brat, you dare to injure a disciple of the Law Enforcement Hall? Damn it, offending the authority of the Law Enforcement Hall will only lead to death. Capture this brat. Take him to the Law Enforcement Hall and let him be judged. The other Law Enforcement Hall disciples saw that Chu Fengmian had injured the Law Enforcement Hall disciple. Their eyes flashed fiercely as they rushed towards Chu Fengmian. These disciples were all true emperors. They used all their killing moves against Chu Fengmian. Law Enforcement Hall? Who do you think you are? How dare you attack our Holy Dragon sect? Chu Fengmian looked at the sky full of killing moves bombarding toward him. Spiritual energy exploded and condensed in the palm of his hand. He unleashed a palm strike. Under his palm, all the killing moves in the sky were broken. The Law Enforcement Hall disciples were horrified and wanted to retreat. However, Chu Fengmian's palm strike had already reached them. Under his palm, the bodies of the Law Enforcement Hall's disciples exploded in the air, and the blood mist on their bodies was completely destroyed. Except for the Law Enforcement Hall disciple whose spiritual vein had been broken by Chu Fengmian, all the remaining Law Enforcement Hall disciples were killed by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian looked at the Law Enforcement Hall disciple whose spiritual vein was broken and snorted coldly. Scram! Tell your hall masters and elders that if they don't give the Holy Dragon sect an explanation for today's matter, the next day, the law enforcement hall will be flattened. The surviving disciple of the law enforcement hall was scared out of his wits and hurriedly flew away. As for the remaining disciplinary hall disciples who had sealed off the Holy Dragon sect, they all fled in fear of provoking Chu Fengmian. Let's go back and see what's going on. Chu Fengmian entered the Holy Dragon sect. His face darkened when he saw the scene before him. Inside the Holy Dragon sect, Chu Fengmian saw bloodstains on the ground. The bloodstains had not completely dried yet. It was obvious that they had just appeared. Luo Kong! Chu Fengmian shouted. In the Holy Dragon sect, only Luo Kong should have returned first. Someone had attacked Luo Kong? Those law enforcement hall disciples had sealed the Holy Dragon sect because of Luo Kong? Senior brother, just as Chu Fengmian was pondering, a weak voice was transmitted into his ears. The voice came from within the Holy Dragon Palace. When Chu Fengmian heard the voice, he activated his conveyance light and arrived at the Holy Dragon Palace in a flash. Qing Meng also followed closely behind and entered the room. Just as he entered the Holy Dragon Palace, Chu Fengmian saw Luo Kong leaning against the wall. Luo Kang's face was pale and there was a palm print on his chest. This palm print had shattered Luo Kang's internal organs. Blood was still flowing out and staining the ground. Even with Luo Kang's regenerative abilities as a true emperor, he couldn't heal this injury. This palm contained a unique power. Even if Luo Kong reconstructed his body, he still wouldn't be able to recover. Chu Fengmian's expression was extremely gloomy. Luo Kong was the first person he had met in the Holy Dragon sect, and they had a good relationship. Now, Luo Kong had been beaten to such a state? This was still within the Holy Dragon's secret realm. Luo Kong returned to the Holy Dragon sect and looked at the empty jade bottle next to him. Clearly, he had consumed many sacred medicines and was barely hanging on. Chapter 1420. Chu Fengmian opened his spiritual sense and examined Luo Kang's body. The more he examined Luo Kang's injuries, the more intense the killing intent in his eyes became. Luo Kang's 5 viscera and 6 bowels were completely shattered. Even the spiritual energy was corroding Luo Kang's blood essence. Fortunately, Luo Kong had taken a lot of sacred medicines to protect a portion of his body. Otherwise, the spirit energy would have completely devoured his blood essence. Even if Luo Kong was a 5 tribulation true emperor with unimaginable vitality, he would have died. It was obvious that someone wanted to kill Luo Kong. Chu Fengmian's fury was about to erupt like a volcano. Although Chu Fengmian didn't have many friends, he treated every one of them with sincerity. Luo Kong had also helped Chu Fengmian a lot, so he had a good relationship with him. Now that Luo Kong was almost killed, Chu Fengmian couldn't take it anymore. Qingming's murderous intent wasn't any weaker than Chu Fengmian's. To her, every disciple of the Holy Dragon sect was her family. Luo Kong was her little brother. No matter who did this, they must pay the price. Qingming gritted her teeth and said, "Senior sister, senior brother?" When Luo Kong heard this voice, he slowly opened his eyes. He was already extremely weak. Even an ancient emperor was enough to take his life. "Luo Kong, don't say anything. Let me treat your injuries first." Chu Fengmian quickly calmed down after hearing Luo Kang's word. He immediately condensed his spirit energy and injected it into Luo Kang's body. As soon as it entered Luo Kang's body, it immediately activated the heaven-devouring secret skill and devoured the spiritual energy that was eroding Luo Kang's blood essence bit by bit. Luo Kang's complexion finally looked better after absorbing all the spirit energy. Qingming hurriedly took out a few healing pills and fed them to Luo Kang. Only then did Luo Kang's injuries heal at a speed visible to the naked eye, and he took a breath. What a narrow escape! If senior brother and senior sister didn't come back in time, I would have died here. Luo Kang recovered some strength and finally had the strength to speak. "Luo Kang, who injured you?" Chu Fengmian said calmly. Although it sounded calm, anyone could tell that it contained incomparable coldness and Chu Fengmian's fury. It's Aomo. Luo Kong looked at Chu Fengmian and gritted his teeth. His eyes were full of hatred. Aomo? Chu Fengmian frowned. He did not know much about the Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension, so he naturally did not know who Aomo was. Aomo, the Supreme Elder of the Law Enforcement Hall? The ancestor of the Ao clan? Qing Meng knew a lot more than Chu Fengmian. She frowned and said when she heard this name, Aomo is one of the Supreme Elders of the Law Enforcement Hall. His strength is at the peak of the 7 calamities, Emperor Gu. His subordinates are the Ao clan, which is one of the clans in the Holy Dragon Mystery Domain. Aomo is also the ancestor of the Ao clan. What's going on? Why is Aomo attacking you? What happened? When Qing Meng saw the disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall, she thought it was the people of the 6 Ultimates sect who mobilized the people of the Law Enforcement Hall. After all, the 6 Ultimates sect had the biggest grudge with the Holy Dragon sect. She did not expect that it was a Supreme Elder of the Law Enforcement Hall who almost killed Luo Kong. This time it was really a close call. If Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng had not returned to the Sacred Dragon Mystery Domain from the 9 Mystic Celestial Venerates Cave Mansion and had stayed in the Immortal Burial Continent until the moment the Immortal Burial Continent closed, Luo Kong would have undoubtedly died. With Luo Kang's injuries, even with the help of sacred medicine, he could only last for 1 or 2 days at most. I obtained a 5-color treasure in the Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension. I thought no one had seen it, but unexpectedly, it was discovered by a disciple of the Ao clan, Ao Yi. When I returned to the Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension, I was surrounded by the people of the Law Enforcement Hall and brought to the Law Enforcement Hall. They wanted me to hand over the treasure and slandered me for killing my fellow sect members. Later, I escaped from the Law Enforcement Hall and was chased by Aomo all the way until I escaped to the Holy Dragon sect. Aomo did not dare to chase after me. When Luo Kong spoke, his tone was full of hatred. He wished he could kill all the people of the Ao clan. Damn it! Murderous intent flashed in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Based on his understanding of Luo Kang's words were mostly true. It was a 5-color treasure. No wonder Aomo was so tempted and did not hesitate to offend the Holy Dragon sect to obtain it. Even the 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu would be tempted by a 5-color treasure. What's that treasure? Qing Meng asked. It's a set of 5 elements spiritual weapons. There's a total of 5 heavenly spiritual swords, but they were taken away by Aomo, Luo Kong said angrily. The treasure that he had painstakingly obtained was taken away just like that, and he was seriously injured. Even a man made of clay would have a temper, not to mention that he was being bullied today. Don't worry, Luo Kong, have a good rest. I'll get that set of 5 elements spiritual weapons back for you. Murderous intent flashed in Chu Fengmian's eyes. You just stay here and recuperate. I'll bring that old dog Aomo's head back to see you. Chu Fengmian said as he walked outside. I'll go with you, Qing Meng said as she prepared to follow Chu Fengmian. Senior brother, senior sister, be careful, Luo Kong hurriedly said from behind. Don't worry. Chu Fengmian turned his head and revealed a smile. When he turned his head back, Chu Fengmian's expression was as cold as ice. It seems like I'll have to go on a killing spree this time, Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. A kind person would be bullied. Someone actually dared to attack Luo Kong. It seemed like Yun Zun had left for too long. Everyone dared to attack the disciples of the Holy Dragon sect. Back then, Yun Zun could beat everyone until they feared the Holy Dragon sect. Today, Chu Fengmian could do the same. Senior sister, I'm afraid that today's killing spree will not end well. In the future, the Holy Dragon Mystic Realm may not be able to accommodate our Holy Dragon sect. Chu Fengmian looked at Qing Meng and said. He foresaw that this time, the Law Enforcement Hall would be flooded with blood. Without a sea of blood, it would be difficult to wash away Luo Kang's pain. Our holy dragon sect has never been afraid. Murderous intent surged in Qing Meng's eyes. All right, let's go. Seeing Qing Meng's attitude, Chu Fengmian laughed loudly. This was a true sect. It reminded him of the Sword Dao sect of the past. So what if they could fight the world for one person? Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng flew out of the Holy Dragon sect. Chapter 1421. You're saying that the newcomer from the Holy Dragon sect, Chu Fengmian, injured you? And killed a few others? Among the crowd, an elder stared at the Holy Dragon sect and asked the disciple from the Law Enforcement Hall who had escaped earlier. Deputy Hall Master, yes, it's them. We were just doing a routine interrogation, but we didn't expect Chu Fengmian to fly into a rage and kill a few of our junior brothers. Qing Meng from the Holy Dragon sect was also present, but she didn't stop him. She even said that she wanted the Law Enforcement Hall to give them an explanation. Otherwise, the disciple from the Law Enforcement Hall stopped abruptly at this point. The Deputy Hall Master was a white-haired elder. His eyes were like torches, and one could see the arrogance in his eyes. He was the center of this group of people and was superior. The Deputy Hall Master's face darkened when he heard the disciple from the Law Enforcement Hall. Otherwise what? I don't dare to say. The disciple from the Law Enforcement Hall spoke softly. Just say it. The Deputy Hall Master's mouth twitched as he said coldly, Yes. The disciple from the Law Enforcement Hall hesitated for a moment before speaking softly. Chu Fengmian said that he wants the Law Enforcement Hall to give him an explanation. Otherwise, he will flatten the Law Enforcement Hall in a day. Damn it! He's just a new disciple. How dare he spout such arrogant words? The Law Enforcement Hall has a superior status and has the right to enforce the law in the Holy Dragon secret territory. This lad has provoked the Law Enforcement Hall and doesn't care about the rules of the Holy Dragon secret territory. He must be taught a lesson. Bring him to the Law Enforcement Hall for trial. When the Law Enforcement Hall's disciple spoke, the expressions of countless Law Enforcement Hall's experts immediately became incomparably furious as they roared loudly. Although the Law Enforcement Hall was one of the 8 halls, it was a little special. It had the right to enforce the law in the Holy Dragon secret territory. Therefore, even the disciples from the other 3 sects had to be polite when they saw the Law Enforcement Hall. Now that Chu Fengmian had said that he would flatten the Law Enforcement Hall, they were all furious. Deputy Hall Master, please report this to the higher-ups. This lad is too arrogant. He killed our Law Enforcement Hall's disciples and still dares to boast shamelessly. He must be punished. Beside the Vice Hall Master, an old man at the level of Emperor Gu, who was clearly the supreme elder of the Law Enforcement Hall, also said angrily, "Humph, what an arrogant brat. A mere newcomer dares to look down on our Law Enforcement Hall? Does he still think that the current Holy Dragon sect is the same as before?" The Vice Hall Master said with an incomparably gloomy expression. Yun Zun has been missing for a long time. There are even rumors that he has fallen in another galaxy. Other than Yun Zun, the others are nothing. They're just a bunch of small fries. We can use this opportunity to completely destroy the Holy Dragon sect. Really? Completely destroy the Holy Dragon sect? Where did this old fellow come from? His words are big. I'd like to see who dares to step into my Holy Dragon sect today. Whoosh! Suddenly, 2 streaks of light flew out from within the Holy Dragon sect. 2 figures appeared in these 2 streaks of light, a man and a woman. They were Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng. The one who spoke just now was Chu Fengmian. Senior sister, who is this old fellow? Chu Fengmian's gaze swept across and finally landed on the old man who had spoken just now. Junior brother, this is the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, Ao Nan. The others are the Supreme Elders of the Law Enforcement Hall. However, Aomo isn't among them. Qing Meng swept her gaze across the group and spoke to Chu Fengmian. Ao Nan? You're also a member of the Ao family? Chu Fengmian's eyes were incomparably cold. Aomo was the patriarch of the Ao family. It seemed like Ao Nan was his junior. Chu Fengmian swept his gaze across the group and spoke coldly. Since you're all here, speak. What kind of explanation do you intend to give? Impudent! Chu Fengmian, you're just a small disciple. How dare you speak to the Vice Hall Master like this? You're offending your superiors. You've already committed an unforgivable crime by killing your fellow sect members. How dare you not repent? Quickly kneel down and follow us back to the law enforcement hall. Only then will we forgive your sins. Before Ao Nan could speak, the disciple of the law enforcement hall who had been released by Chu Fengmian spoke first. His spiritual vein was broken by Chu Fengmian and he hated Chu Fengmian to the bone. Now that he had a backer, he immediately jumped out. Is it the turn of a dog to speak? Chu Fengmian's eyes surged with killing intent as he looked at the disciple of the law enforcement hall. Who do you think you are? Law enforcement hall? The law enforcement hall doesn't have the qualifications to judge me. Since you don't know how to cherish your life, you can go and compensate those people. Boom. Chu Fengmian suddenly attacked. He waved his hand and blasted a palm strike towards the disciple of the law enforcement hall. Chu Fengmian's heart was already burning with rage today, and he had already planned to start a massacre. Now that the disciple of the law enforcement hall had taken the initiative to jump out, how could Chu Fengmian let him go? Impudent! You still dare to be violent. Many experts of the law enforcement hall didn't expect that Chu Fengmian would actually dare to attack in front of them. They couldn't react for a moment before they exploded with anger. Chu Fengmian's action showed that he didn't put them in his eyes at all. Under the surging murderous intent, a spirit energy filled the sky. A total of 8 experts from the law enforcement hall attacked together. They were all elders of the Sixth Tribulation True Emperor level. Their combined power was close to that of Emperor Gu. They attacked Chu Fengmian together. However, Chu Fengmian's expression was full of disdain. Against Emperor Gu? He had killed an 8th Tribulation Emperor Gu before. Why would he care about these 6 Tribulation True Emperors? All of you die! Chu Fengmian shouted. The power of his palm strike immediately enveloped the several law enforcement hall elders who had just attacked. This palm was about to destroy the law enforcement hall disciple. Feeling the terrifying power, the law enforcement hall disciple immediately knelt on the ground and trembled. Boom! That disciple of the law enforcement hall and all the elders of the law enforcement hall who had just attacked were instantly blown up in the air. Even the blood mist was shattered and they died on the spot. 8 law enforcement hall elders and 1 law enforcement hall disciple, a total of 9 people, were all killed by Chu Fengmian's palm. The faces of the people from the law enforcement hall who were incomparably arrogant just now froze. Those were 8 elders of the law enforcement hall. Almost all of them were experienced Sixth Tribulation True Emperors. Even though their talents weren't enough to reach Emperor Gu's level, they weren't necessarily weaker than the geniuses on the Grand Heavenly ranking. Chapter 1422. Seeing this scene, those disciples of the law enforcement hall who had just said that they wanted to put Chu Fengmian on trial were all stunned and speechless for a long time. Especially Vice Hall Lord Ao Nan, his expression froze. His gloomy face was filled with murderous intent as he looked at Chu Fengmian with a solemn expression. Chu Fengmian's attack was too fast for the experts of the law enforcement hall to react. By the time they regained their senses, that disciple had already been killed on the spot. This strength was at the level of Emperor Gu. Chu Fengmian was only a quasi-emperor. How could he be so powerful? The hindrance is gone. Speak, what kind of explanation will the law enforcement hall give for today's matter? Chu Fengmian coldly glanced at the group of people from the law enforcement hall and coldly said, Explanation? What explanation do you want? You killed a fellow disciple, offended your superiors, and even killed an elder. This is a capital offense. Vice Hall Lord Ao Nan coldly said. Fine, your holy dragon sect is powerful today. However, I will certainly report this matter to the higher-ups of the Holy Dragon Secret Realm and let them make a decision. And you, Qingmeng, you stood here and didn't stop your fellow disciple from killing your fellow disciple. This is also a grave offense. Just wait for the trial of the Holy Dragon's Secret Realm. Let's go. After Vice Hall Master Ao Nan finished speaking, he waved his hand and turned around to leave with the rest of the disciplinary hall. He could see that they wouldn't be able to gain any advantage against Chu Fengmian today, not to mention Qingmeng. They wanted to leave and wait for the true experts of the Law Enforcement Hall to arrive. The Law Enforcement Hall had the right to supervise the disciples of the Holy Dragon Secret Realm. There were many Supreme Elders among them. Some of them were even 8 Tribulation True Emperors. Once they arrived, Chu Fengmian wouldn't be able to act arrogantly anymore. Want to leave? Chu Fengmian saw that Ao Nan wanted to leave and coldly shouted. The power of the Tianlong transformation was instantly activated. In the surrounding space, an invisible cage was formed, trapping everyone inside. Brat, what are you trying to do? You are challenging our Law Enforcement Hall and the prestige of the Holy Dragon Secret Realm. Do you really think that your Holy Dragon sect is invincible in the Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension? Apart from us, there are many others who wish for the Holy Dragon sect's destruction. After being stopped by Chu Fengmian, Ao Nan's face revealed a hint of anger. After all, he was one of the Vice Hall Masters of the Law Enforcement Hall. His status was extremely high and was on the same level as the Supreme Elder. Now, Chu Fengmian, a junior, actually dared to kill an elder of the Law Enforcement Hall in front of him, not giving him any face at all. This made him furious. The moment Ao Nan opened his mouth, he attacked as well. A pitch-black beam of light shot out from his hand and transformed into a chain that shot towards Chu Fengmian. Wherever the chain passed, the space around it would shatter. A mere 7 Tribulations Emperor Gu dares to be so arrogant in front of me? Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. Facing the bombardment of the chains, he suddenly extended his hand and the power of the divine tree was added to his body. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian made a grabbing motion with his hand and the chain immediately landed in his palm. As Chu Fengmian circulated his spiritual energy, the chain in his palm was suddenly crushed and turned into nothingness in the air. Chu Fengmian had broken Ao Nan's attack with his bare hands. The Law Enforcement Hall Vice Hall Master, Ao Nan, had been easily defeated by Chu Fengmian in one move. Challenging the Law Enforcement Hall? What is your Law Enforcement Hall? My Holy Dragon sect transcends everything. No one can punish us. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. As for those who intend to destroy the Holy Dragon sect, let them step forward. I'll kill every single one of them today. I'd like to see who dares to make an enemy out of me. Behind Chu Fengmian, a murderous aura surged and a terrifying killing intent shrouded the entire Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension. He was going to start a massacre today and kill until everyone was convinced. As for you, I won't kill you first. If the Law Enforcement Hall doesn't intend to give me an explanation today, I'll let you see with your own eyes how I'll destroy the Law Enforcement Hall. Chu Fengmian looked at Vice Hall Master Ao Nan and waved his hand. He condensed spiritual energy and enveloped Ao Nan's body, firmly suppressing him. You dare. I'm a member of the Ao family. You dare to suppress me. My Ao family's patriarch will definitely kill you. Ao Nan, who was being suppressed by Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy, roared loudly. Ao family's patriarch? Aomo? Hearing Ao Nan's words, the killing intent in Chu Fengmian's eyes became even more intense. Spiritual energy surged out from his palm, and the suppression became 10 times stronger. Ao Nan, who could still struggle a little, couldn't speak anymore. Today, I'm looking for your AOMO. If your Law Enforcement Hall doesn't obediently hand over that old dog AOMO's head today, it'll be the day of your Law Enforcement Hall's destruction. Chu Fengmian sneered. The killing intent in his voice was no longer concealed. You're a madman. You're challenging the entire Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension. When Ao Nan heard Chu Fengmian's words, he was so scared that his whole body trembled. Aomo, the Ao family's patriarch, was the third Grand Elder of the Law Enforcement Hall. In the entire Law Enforcement Hall, and even in the Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension, he had an extraordinary status. He originally mentioned Ao Mo's name to make Chu Fengmian wary. He didn't expect Chu Fengmian to say such crazy words. If the Law Enforcement Hall doesn't intend to hand over that old dog Aomo today, it'll be the day of your Law Enforcement Hall's destruction. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly and lifted Ao Nan by the neck. Senior sister, let's go. There's no need to waste our breath with these little fellows. Let's go to the Law Enforcement Hall. Chu Fengmian looked at Qin Meng and said. He gathered his spiritual energy, and with a flash, he turned into a streak of light and flew towards the Law Enforcement Hall. As for the Law Enforcement Hall's disciples, Chu Fengmian couldn't be bothered to argue with them. What's that? What a strong killing intent. What a fast streak of light. Who is it? That person seems to be a newcomer from the Holy Dragon sect. His name is Chu Fengmian? What is he doing? Look, isn't he carrying someone in his hand? That's the Law Enforcement Hall's Deputy Hall Master, Ao Nan. Oh my God! Ao Nan is Emperor Gu. Why is he being carried in his hand? And behind him is Qin Meng from the Holy Dragon sect. What's going on? Where are they going? Looking at the direction, they're heading towards the Law Enforcement Hall. What's going on? Is the Holy Dragon sect going to war with the Law Enforcement Hall? Many disciples in the Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension raised their heads to look at the streaks of light in the sky. They were stunned and extremely shocked. Chapter 14:23. In the Holy Dragon's secret domain, many disciples had already returned from the immortal burial continent. They all stared blankly at the unbelievable scene in the sky. Chu Fengmian was doing it on purpose. Today, Chu Fengmian was going to start a massacre and establish his might. He wanted to make sure that no one would dare to lay a hand on the Holy Dragon sect's disciples. He wanted everyone in the Holy Dragon's secret domain to see the consequences of laying a hand on the Holy Dragon sect's disciples. Moreover, Chu Fengmian knew that the Law Enforcement Hall was just a dog. There were real orders behind them. If he didn't establish his might today, the other halls and sects would ride on the Holy Dragon sect's head in the future. Looks like the Law Enforcement Hall doesn't intend to save you. Chu Fengmian sneered as he looked at the Vice Hall Master Ao Nan in his hand. Chu Fengmian's swagger had naturally attracted the attention of many experts in the sacred dragon mystic realm. However, not a single one of them dared to stop him. Ao Nan was a 7 Calamity Emperor Gu. Although he was a newcomer among the 7 Calamity Emperors, he was still an Emperor Gu and a Grand Elder. Now, Chu Fengmian was in his hand. Many Emperor Gu in the crowd didn't dare to act rashly. They didn't want to end up in the same situation as Ao Nan. Chu Fengmian's flight under the watchful eyes of the crowd was a humiliation to Ao Nan. Given Chu Fengmian's strength, he could break through time and reach the Law Enforcement Hall in an instant. However, he didn't have that much time. Instead, he slowly flew over to humiliate and establish his might. He wanted to let others know the consequences of offending Chu Fengmian. The countless gazes made Ao Nan feel extremely humiliated and humiliated. He was about to go crazy. However, his strength was suppressed by Chu Fengmian. No matter how angry he was, he couldn't escape from Chu Fengmian's grasp. He could only roar crazily. Little bastard, the Law Enforcement Hall is filled with experts. You'll just be throwing your life away if you go. All the humiliation I've suffered will be repaid with your body. You still have the strength to shout? Chu Fengmian wasn't angry when he heard Ao Nan's words. Instead, he sneered and clenched his fist. Ao Nan's body exploded and turned into a bloody mist. The bloody mist rapidly condensed back into Ao Nan's appearance. However, Ao Nan's strength had decreased by 30% due to the destruction of his physical body. Ao Nan, who had just reformed her body, was trembling. Her eyes were still filled with hatred, but she didn't dare to say anything. Chu Fengmian's conveyance light arrived at the law enforcement hall. He glanced at the restriction in the sky above the law enforcement hall. He ignored it and rushed in directly. "Who is it?" They immediately flew over after seeing Chu Fengmian. These were direct disciples of the enforcement hall. They were at the 3rd or 4th tribulation true emperor level. Seeing Chu Fengmian coming over, he immediately shouted loudly, "Stop! How dare you barge into the law enforcement hall? Are you courting death?" This law enforcement hall disciple had always been arrogant and despotic. When he saw Chu Fengmian rushing over, he ignored him and directly drew his sword and slashed at him. Courting death. Chu Fengmian snorted and pointed with his finger. Using his finger as a sword, he unleashed a sword energy. Whoosh. Wherever the sword chi passed, the law enforcement hall disciples were instantly pierced by the sword chi. Blood splattered everywhere and their bodies exploded in midair. Their essence blood was completely destroyed by the sword chi. Enemy attack! One of the law enforcement hall's disciples shouted the moment Chu Fengmian's sword chi killed him. The entire law enforcement hall was in chaos. The law enforcement hall. This was the most lively hall among the 8. Every day, many disciples would be arrested and punished for violating the rules or offending the law enforcement hall. There were usually hundreds of thousands of disciples in the law enforcement hall. Therefore, countless people lifted their heads when they heard that there was an enemy attack. They happened to see the scene of Chu Fengmian killing the disciples of the law enforcement hall. Some sharp-eyed people saw Vice Hall Master Ao Nan being held in Chu Fengmian's hand. They were horrified. "Quickly, activate the defensive formation." Quickly, asked the Hall Master and the Supreme Elders to come out. Some of the core disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall had a bad premonition. Especially when they saw Ao Nan, their eyes became solemn. In the blink of an eye, a series of seals were activated above the disciplinary hall. Countless seals appeared in the air and formed a gigantic formation that covered the entire disciplinary hall. As one of the 8 halls, the Law Enforcement Hall's foundation was not to be underestimated. This defensive formation is not easy to deal with. Qing Meng, who was beside Chu Fengmian, frowned when she saw the protective mountain array. However, it seems like the Supreme Elders of the Law Enforcement Hall have not come out of seclusion yet. It's only activated by some elders. Its power is not even 30%. Let's just fight our way in. Don't waste your breath on them. Chu Fengmian glanced at the defensive formation and snorted. He floated above the Law Enforcement Hall and looked at the defensive formation as if he was studying its secret. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian moved. The power in his body had accumulated to the limit. Suddenly, the power of the Battle Dragon bloodline boiled, and the shadow of the ancient Battle Dragon shrouded Chu Fengmian's body. A total of 40,000 formations appeared in Chu Fengmian's hand. At this moment, Chu Fengmian moved. He sent a palm strike at the protective mountain array. While he was in midair, his palm transformed into a dragon claw. The mystical dragon race martial technique was unleashed at this moment. Primogenitor's first form. Boom. The power of the first form was activated and the claw struck the defensive formation. The defensive formation of the Law Enforcement Hall had a total of 9 formation cores. Each formation core was located in a spiritual spring. For example, the Law Enforcement Hall had a total of 9 spiritual springs for the disciples to cultivate. The power of Chu Fengmian's first move bombarded the mountain guarding grand array. The entire array began to shake. The protective formation was unable to completely withstand the power of the first move. The entire Law Enforcement Hall began to tremble. The 9 spiritual springs were shaking violently. They were withstanding the incomparable power and could break at any time. Not good. All the disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall attacked together. Protect the spiritual springs. A supreme elder came out of seclusion. When he saw the shaking scene, he was shocked and shouted loudly. The 9 spiritual springs were the foundation of the Law Enforcement Hall. Without the 9 spiritual springs, the Law Enforcement Hall would not have such rich spiritual energy. It would be extremely difficult to find a mountain with so many spiritual springs. Chapter 1424. Chu Fengmian didn't need to expend so much energy just to break the protective mountain array. Given his strength, he could easily tear a hole in the array. However, what Chu Fengmian planned to do now was to completely uproot the protective mountain array and destroy all 9 spirit springs. The 9 spirit springs were the foundation of the Law Enforcement Hall. Perhaps to the ancient emperor, the spiritual qi within the spiritual spring was of little use to him. However, most of the disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall were true emperors. Many of them were even boundary emperors. Many people from the Sacred Dragon Mystery Plane had joined the Law Enforcement Hall because of the 9 spirit springs. Since Chu Fengmian wanted to destroy the Law Enforcement Hall today, the first step was to destroy the foundation of the Law Enforcement Hall, the 9 spirit springs. Primogenitor's second move. Chu Fengmian looked at the shaking Law Enforcement Hall and sneered. Dragon roars resounded behind him as a huge amount of energy accumulated in Chu Fengmian's palm. Stop! Seeing this, a great elder of the Law Enforcement Hall flew out, gathered his spiritual power, and bombarded Chu Fengmian with his palm. Law Enforcement Universe. Rumble. The power of the palm enveloped Chu Fengmian. It was as if Chu Fengmian had become the hungriest villain in the world and was about to be judged by heaven and earth. Junior brother, I will deal with this person. You attack the protective mountain array. Just as Chu Fengmian was about to withdraw some of his spirit qi, Qingmeng, who was standing beside Chu Fengmian, made the first move. She stepped forward and gathered spirit qi in her palm. The spirit qi in Qingmeng's palm turned into a ray of green light and slashed at the Grand Elder of the Law Enforcement Hall. Bang! The green light flashed and the Grand Elder's spirit qi was shattered on the spot. The force of the backlash forced him back and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The Grand Elder looked at Qingmeng gloomily and said coldly, Qingmeng, is the Holy Dragon Sect really going to make an enemy out of the Law Enforcement Hall today? You should know that the Law Enforcement Hall has an even greater power behind it. Being impulsive won't do you any good. Leave a way out and let Aonan go. There is still room for negotiation. The Grand Elder's words were laced with a hint of threat. You people from the Law Enforcement Hall almost killed Luokong, and now you're talking about leaving some leeway? Qingmeng's face was full of anger. Ever since she saw Luokang's near-death injuries, she no longer had any thoughts of making peace with the Law Enforcement Hall. Hatred could only be washed away with blood. Yangming, this matter has nothing to do with you. The people I want to deal with are the people of the Ao clan. If you leave now, I won't kill you. Qingmeng looked at the Grand Elder, called Yangming in front of her and calmly said, However, I am the Supreme Elder of the Law Enforcement Hall. No matter what, I will not allow you to act presumptuously here. Yang Ming snorted coldly as he looked at Qingmeng. Qingmeng, when I was famous for a long time, you were just a newbie. Weren't you known as a genius? Then today, I want to experience whether or not you have the strength of the legends. Yang Ming let out a long howl. The word law suddenly condensed on his body, controlling the laws of the world. With a tap of his palm, a command of law materialized and shot out. Thunder and lightning appeared in the sky. Judgment! Rumble! Countless bolts of lightning fell from the sky and struck towards Qingmeng and Chu Fengmian. Stubborn! Qingmeng shook her head when she saw this. A green light shot out from her hand and shot into the sky. This green light was tens of thousands of feet long and pierced through the sky. Wherever the green light passed, tens of thousands of bolts of lightning were destroyed. This green light broke through the thunderclouds and landed on Yang Ming's body, sending him flying with a single strike. He was defeated with a single strike. Seeing Yang Ming defeated with a single strike, the disciples of the law enforcement hall below were dumbfounded. This was Emperor Gu, the supreme elder of the law enforcement hall. How could he be so weak today? At the same time, Chu Fengmian's strength had reached its peak. With a move of his palm, he once again struck down from the sky. Rumble! Under this dragon claw, the protective mountain formation could no longer withstand it and was shattered into countless pieces. 9 rays of light flew out from the protective formation. These 9 rays of light were the power of the 9 spirit springs, and were the foundation of the protective formation's power. Grab! Chu Fengmian circulated his spiritual energy, and the dragon claw immediately caught the 9 rays of light in the palm of his hand. No matter how the 9 rays of light struggled, they could not escape from the dragon claw. Rise! After grabbing the 9 rays of light, Chu Fengmian's right hand suddenly grabbed the 9 rays of light and flew them towards Chu Fengmian. On the mountain peak, the 9 spirit springs that were hidden extremely deeply were pulled out by the roots along with the 9 rays of light. The entire mountain peak where the law enforcement hall was located was shattered because of the 9 spirit springs being pulled out. The earth shook and the mountain shook as if it was about to be destroyed. Little bastard, how dare you take the spirit veins? Put them down. A majestic voice suddenly sounded from within the law enforcement hall. At the same time, an extremely strong power of heaven and earth appeared. An old man in a long robe slowly walked out. This old man was dressed in luxurious clothes and was incomparably majestic. Hall Master! Hall Master! Move quickly and subdue this brat. This brat dares to attack the law enforcement hall. He is arrogant and despotic. His crime is unforgivable. We must capture him and bring him to trial. Seeing the arrival of this old man, countless disciples of the law enforcement hall immediately shouted. You are the hall master of the law enforcement hall? Chu Fengmian looked at the old man in front of him and sized him up. This law enforcement hall master's strength was around that of the 8 calamities Emperor Gu. He was much stronger than the ordinary supreme elders. Although his aura was not as strong as that of the blood god Emperor Gu, it was enough to be on par with Emperor Gu Shui Xian and the others. However, he was merely an 8 calamities Emperor Gu. Chu Fengmian had killed the 8 calamities Emperor Gu in the 9 mystic celestial sovereigns' cave abode. Chu Fengmian was confident that he could kill an 8 calamities Emperor Gu. Since the main character is here, tell me, what kind of explanation do you intend to give to the Holy Dragon sect today? Chu Fengmian looked at the law enforcement hall master and sneered. I won't ask for too much. Just chop off the head of that old dog called Aomo and kill all the disciples of the Ao family. Then, today's matter will be over. Bastard, you are too arrogant. How dare you act so presumptuously in front of the hall master? Are you trying to go against your superior? After hearing Chu Fengmian's words, a white-haired old man beside the law enforcement hall master suddenly spoke before the law enforcement hall master could speak. Chapter 1425. Who are you? Chu Fengmian looked at the white-haired old man and asked coldly. Junior brother, he is Aomo. He is the one who injured junior brother Luo Kong. Qingming said without waiting for anyone to answer. Aomo? Murderous intent erupted from Chu Fengmian's eyes when he heard the name. You are the old dog who injured junior brother Luo Kong? Good, you came to me before I even looked for you. Since that is the case, you shall die. As soon as he said that, the spiritual energy in Chu Fengmian's body surged. He suddenly waved his hand behind his back, which transformed into a dragon claw and attacked Aomo Jr. Stop. Don't make a big mistake. The law enforcement hall master could no longer hold back when he saw Chu Fengmian attack. He suddenly gathered his spiritual energy in his palm and faced Chu Fengmian's dragon claw in the air. The palm and the claw faced each other in the air, and the two forces exploded in the air. Both Chu Fengmian and the law enforcement hall master were pushed back a few steps by the force. Many law enforcement hall disciples' eyes almost fell out of their sockets when they saw this scene. This person can go against the hall master? Oh my God, is he still human? Monster, why are the people of the Holy Dragon sect so different from each other? Exclamations of surprise could be heard. The law enforcement hall master was an 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu. As the hall master of one of the 8 halls, his status in the Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension had already surpassed many supreme elders. Chu Fengmian was only a disciple and a puny quasi-emperor. They could not believe that Chu Fengmian was not at a disadvantage in the fight. When the law enforcement hall master saw the result of the fight, his eyes flashed with a bit of surprise. He originally wanted to let Chu Fengmian suffer a loss so that Chu Fengmian would retreat. He did not expect Chu Fengmian's strength to have reached such a level. This person's strength is too terrifying. We cannot let him walk out of the law enforcement hall today. Murderous intent surged in the law enforcement hall master's eyes. He had originally planned to force Chu Fengmian away, but now that he had seen Chu Fengmian's strength, his heart was filled with killing intent. Now that Chu Fengmian had taken the initiative to attack the Hall of Beheadings and Executions, it didn't matter if he killed Chu Fengmian. If he let Chu Fengmian escape unscathed today, it would not be so easy to find trouble with Chu Fengmian again. Boy, you attacked the Hall of Beheadings and Executions, destroyed the defensive spell formation, and even tried to take the spirit vein. What are you trying to do? Do you want to betray the sect? The head of the law enforcement hall stared at Chu Fengmian. The killing intent in his eyes was no longer concealed as he spoke with a ferocious face. Hurry up and release Deputy Hall Master Ao Nan, then kneel down and repent. That's the only way you won't implicate the Holy Dragon sect. You don't want the Holy Dragon sect to be destroyed because of you, right? Really? Who do you think you are? Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall? Someone like you dares to threaten me? How dare you destroy the Holy Dragon sect? Chu Fengmian laughed heartily upon hearing the Law Enforcement Hall Master's words. His words caused the Law Enforcement Hall Master's face to darken to the extreme. The killing intent in his eyes could no longer be suppressed. The Law Enforcement Hall Master stared at Chu Fengmian and said coldly, "Boy, don't make a mistake. Your strength is not bad, but compared to the entire law enforcement hall, it's not worth mentioning. If you continue to cause trouble, you'll only be courting death. The law enforcement hall has existed since the Holy Dragon Secret Dimension was first established. For tens of thousands of years, we've been monitoring the Holy Dragon Secret Dimension. You, a boy, are courting death by provoking the law enforcement hall. That's right. Hurry up and release Ao Nan." Aomo, who was beside him, also spoke. "Otherwise, you'll die here today, and the Holy Dragon sect will be destroyed because of you." Ha 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 ha. Chu Fengmian suddenly laughed out loud. At the same time, his gaze swept across the entire law enforcement hall. "A bunch of idiot. Do you think you can kill me and destroy the Holy Dragon sect with just a few puny cats from the law enforcement hall? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Didn't you want to kill me? Fine, I'll give you a reason to kill me, so that I don't have to waste my breath on you." A surge of spiritual energy emerged from Chu Fengmian's palm, and he squeezed it. Ao Nan, who was in Chu Fengmian's palm, suddenly began to swell. He was about to be squeezed to death. "Old ancestor, Hall Master, save me!" Ao Nan cried out loudly in Chu Fengmian's palm. "Stop! Little bastard, if you dare to kill Ao Nan, I won't let you go. I will hunt down and kill all your family members and friends. I will make them accompany you in death." Aomo roared even more crazily. "Then let's see if you have the chance." Chu Fengmian didn't take Aomo's threat to heart. After all, Aomo was a dead man today. It was just a threat from a dead man. Why would Chu Fengmian care? Die. Chu Fengmian circulated the spiritual energy in his palm, and Ao Nan's body was about to burst. No! Rumble! As he roared, Ao Nan's body suddenly exploded, turning into a bloody mist that filled the sky. The bloody mist floated in the air, trying to reform his body. However, Chu Fengmian wouldn't give him the chance this time. Chu Fengmian pointed his finger, and a ball of flame suddenly appeared, burning the bloody mist. Not a single drop of essence blood was left. The Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, the Seven Calamities Emperor Gu, died just like that. Furthermore, he was killed by Chu Fengmian in the Law Enforcement Hall in front of countless disciples, supreme elders, and the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. Little bastard, you're finished. You killed a supreme elder. You're treacherous. You must die today. Even if you have a powerful background, you won't be able to save yourself. The Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall watched as Ao Nan's bloody mist was burned to ashes. He couldn't believe what had just happened. Chu Fengmian really didn't care about his threat and killed Ao Nan. He was looking down on his dignity as the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. He was looking down on the entire Law Enforcement Hall. Little bastard, you offended your superiors and killed a supreme elder. You're no longer a disciple of the Holy Dragon's secret domain. You're a demon. You betrayed the sect. Every disciple of the Holy Dragon's secret domain has the right to do so. The Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall walked over to Chu Fengmian with a face full of killing intent. As the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, he usually had a high position in the Holy Dragon's secret domain. This time, he was completely enraged by Chu Fengmian. The only thought in his mind was to kill Chu Fengmian. A bunch of sanctimonious people. How dare you talk about enforcing the law? Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed with disdain. Chapter 1426. The moment Chu Fengmian opened his mouth, his hand suddenly grabbed downward. Within the Law Enforcement Hall, the 9 spirit springs that had just been pulled out were once again pulled into Chu Fengmian's hand. These 9 spirit springs turned into 9 rays of light that were tightly held in Chu Fengmian's hand. As Chu Fengmian pulled with all his might, the entire mountain peak where the Law Enforcement Hall was located began to shake. Not good! This person wants to pull out the spiritual spring directly. Some Law Enforcement Hall experts had already seen through Chu Fengmian's actions. Their faces were filled with horror as they shouted loudly. In particular, the Law Enforcement Hall Master's face was gloomy to the extreme. A shocking amount of spiritual energy erupted from him as he took a step forward and condensed it in his palm. These 9 spirit springs were the foundation of the Law Enforcement Hall. Chu Fengmian killing Ao Nan wasn't enough to hurt the Law Enforcement Hall. The death of a 7 Tribulation true emperor was nothing compared to the power of the Law Enforcement Hall. However, if Chu Fengmian were to pull out all 9 spirit springs today, then the Law Enforcement Hall would truly suffer a calamity. The Law Enforcement Hall Master was furious. As an 8 Calamity Emperor Gu, his fury was enough to change the color of the sky and earth. The entire Sacred Dragon secret realm could feel the anger of the Law Enforcement Hall Master. Fury burns the heavens. Rumble. Endless anger condensed in the sky and turned into a sea of blood, shrouding Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng. The Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master already had the intention to kill. Today, he was going to completely kill Chu Fengmian and Qing Meng. Even Emperor Gu would find it hard to escape from the scorching heat waves. Little flame? Do you think you can do anything to me? Chu Fengmian was deep in the sea of flames, but his face was still as calm as ever. There was even a hint of disdain at the corner of his mouth. Flame, is it? Let's see whose flame is stronger. As Chu Fengmian looked at the sea of fire, a colorless flame suddenly appeared in his palm. With a thought from Chu Fengmian, the colorless flame flew out from Chu Fengmian's palm. The small colorless flame encountered the sea of fire in the air and ignited instantly. Boom! In an instant, the colorless flames turned into a sea of fire that was not inferior to the one unleashed by the Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master. The The two flames collided in midair. The heat waves from the two flames forced countless Emperor Gu to retreat. Even an Emperor Gu would be incinerated if he was caught in it. The entire sky was burning red. The colorless flame that Chu Fengmian had unleashed gained the upper hand the instant the two of them clashed. The flames that filled the sky were completely devoured by the colorless flame as it approached the Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master, the countless Supreme Elders, and even some of the spectating experts of the Holy Dragon Mystic Ground all changed greatly. Fury was already the most tyrannical flame in the world. The fury of the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall was enough to resonate with the heaven and earth. However, it was easily devoured by Chu Fengmian's colorless flame. Pure Yang Heavenly Fire. This is the most terrifying pure Yang Heavenly Flame among the 9 heavens' heavenly flames. One of the Law Enforcement Hall's Supreme Elders immediately yelled, "Pure Yang Heavenly Flame!" Hearing this name, many experts of the Law Enforcement Hall were shocked. Although many of them had not seen the pure Yang Heavenly Flame before, they all knew about the 9 heavenly flames. Among the 9 heavenly flames, the most terrifying one was the colorless pure Yang Heavenly Flame. The pure Yang Heavenly Flame was enough to incinerate everything. This little bastard, how could he have so many fortuitous encounters? The Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master was extremely jealous when he saw the pure Yang Heavenly Flame. With the ability to control the pure Yang Heavenly Flame, as long as Chu Fengmian was willing to cultivate the way of fire control, he would definitely become one of the strongest experts among Emperor Gu in the future. The more he thought about it, the more the murderous intent in the Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master's eyes intensified. If he killed Chu Fengmian, all these fortuitous encounters would belong to him. So what if it's the pure Yang Heavenly Flame? No matter how many fortuitous encounters you have, you're just a little quasi-emperor. Looking at the pure Yang Heavenly Flame in front of him, the Law Enforcement Hall Master suddenly shouted angrily. Rays of golden light flew out from his body. The laws of heaven and earth. There were a total of 1,500 heavenly laws. These heavenly laws flew out and arrived in front of the sea of flames formed by the pure Yang Heavenly Flame. Suddenly, they gathered together and formed a cage. The sea of flames formed by the pure Yang Heavenly Flame was trapped in this cage. Little bastard, do you really think that I've been in charge of the Law Enforcement Hall for thousands of years for nothing? You're just a junior. How dare you make an enemy out of me today? The Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master revealed a sinister smile when he saw the pure Yang Heavenly Flame being trapped. Today, you've offended your superiors and betrayed your sect. This is an unforgivable crime. I'll get rid of you for the sect. Spear of Judgment. The Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood essence. This blood essence turned into a blood spear in front of the Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master. There was a huge law word on the blood spear of judgment. Junior brother, be careful. Qing Meng's expression changed drastically when she saw the spear of judgment. This is the strongest secret art of the Law Enforcement Hall. One move is enough to destroy everything. Several 8 tribulation true emperors have died to this spear. At a glance, there were countless figures around the judgment spear. Every one of these figures had been famous powerhouses when they were alive, but they had all died under the judgment spear. Even after being killed by the spear, they would never be able to rest in peace. They would suffer endless torment inside the spear. Today, I'll add another sinner to the list of sinners under the spear of judgment. The Law Enforcement Hall Master stared at Chu Fengmian and sneered. Die. Boom! When the judgment spear descended, many onlookers trembled. Even though they were not the target of the judgment spear, many of them knelt on the ground and begged for mercy when they felt the power of the spear. At that moment, Chu Fengmian, who was before the judgment spear, was simply like an extremely heinous criminal waiting to be judged. Spear of judgment? You want to put me on trial? Heaven and earth aren't qualified, Who do you think you are? Facing the descending judgment spear, Chu Fengmian laughed loudly and said disdainfully, "Sword." Whoosh! The world's edge sword case suddenly opened behind him. Chapter 14:27. That's Elder Sword Bone's sword box. Didn't Old Man Sword Bone die in the immortal burial continent? Did he die in the hands of this kid? Looking at the sword box on Chu Fengmian's back, many experts recognized it at a glance. The sword box was a supreme treasure. Many sword cultivators had their eyes on the sword box. Elder Sword Bone had escaped unscathed after countless attempts to capture it. Rule of law. Everyone must be judged. The law enforcement hall master snorted coldly as he saw the countless sword chi soaring into the sky. A surge of spiritual energy was injected into the judgment spear. The judgment spear emitted a seven-colored glow that enveloped the countless sword chi. It was going to refine all of the sword chi. You're overestimating yourself. You can't even protect yourself. Who do you want to judge? Chu Fengmian looked at the law enforcement hall master and said disdainfully, "Break." Boom! The power of countless sword chi gathered together at that moment. 1,000-foot sword ray emitted a dazzling light. This ray of light directly tore the seven-colored glow apart. Hiss! There was a sound of something being torn apart. The 1,000-foot sword ray mercilessly tore the seven-colored glow apart. At the same time, it heavily bombarded the judgment spear. Gotcha! Hearing this crisp sound, the eyes of countless law enforcement hall disciples were filled with shock. They could not believe what they had just seen. The moment the 1,000-foot sword ray struck, a crack appeared on the judgment spear. In the next moment, the judgment spear split open and turned into spiritual energy that filled the sky. It then shattered in the air. The law enforcement hall's supreme secret technique had been easily broken by Chu Fengmian. Puff! The judgment spear was condensed from the blood essence of the law enforcement hall master. Now that it was shattered by Chu Fengmian in the air, the power of the backlash immediately bombarded his body. He spat out a big mouthful of blood and was directly sent flying. Kill him. All law enforcement hall disciples, listen up. Kill this person. This person is already a demon. I'll destroy the demon of our holy dragon mystery dimension. We must kill him to restore peace to our holy dragon mystery dimension. As he was sent flying, the law enforcement hall master shouted loudly, "Kill! Kill the demon! Do meritorious deeds for the sect." Aomo was the first one to shout loudly. Immediately, several supreme elders of the law enforcement hall did not hesitate and attacked together. The spiritual energy in the sky surged. Thousands of law enforcement hall disciples followed closely behind and bombarded Chu Fengmian. It seems like there's no need for the law enforcement hall to exist today. All of you shall die. Murderous intent surged in Chu Fengmian eye. Chu Fengmian, an eye's blood. Bastard! Including Aomo, there were a total of 7 tribulation ancient emperors who were the supreme elders of the Hall of Law Enforcement. Their spiritual power condensed in the air and immediately turned into a huge law character, hanging high above Chu Fengmian's head. Under the influence of the word, a huge world enveloped Chu Fengmian, trying to suppress him. A bunch of chickens and dogs. Raise your swords. Sword art. Chu Fengmian glanced at the Dao and sneered. The ancestral dragon supreme sword in his right hand was unsheathed. A blood-red color appeared on the sword's edge. It was this blood-red color that contained the ultimate killing move. Die. One of the supreme elders of the law enforcement hall was targeted by the blood-red color. Immediately, a sword chi slashed out. The supreme elder did not even think to block it. The blood-red color had already penetrated his body. Boom! The great elder's body was torn apart by the sword chi and exploded into pieces. The bloody mist all over his body returned to Chu Fengmian's sword chi. After devouring the supreme elder's blood, the blood-red color on the sword edge became even more dazzling. Kill! Without hesitation, Chu Fengmian slashed out. The blood-red color in the sky immediately turned into dozens of sword chi. The dozens of sword chi slashed toward the crowd of law enforcement hall disciples below. Many law enforcement hall disciples were penetrated by the sword chi and exploded in the air. The blood mist on their bodies was directly slashed by the sword chi. At the same time, the blood mist was also devoured by the sword chi, making the sword chi more and more powerful. Every time he killed someone, he would absorb their blood and chi, and the sword chi would become stronger and stronger. This was the killing sword technique. Damn it! Damn it! Looking at a large number of law enforcement hall disciples dying in Chu Fengmian's hands, the Supreme Elder's hearts were bleeding. Even for the law enforcement hall, these disciples were cultivated by spending a lot of wealth and resources. In order to deal with Chu Fengmian, the law enforcement hall had sent in elites this time. Now, every disciple who died was at least an inner disciple. Many of them were even true disciples and core disciples. Under Chu Fengmian's sword edge, those who were not as strong as Emperor Gu were not Chu Fengmian's opponent at all. They were killed mercilessly by Chu Fengmian. Go and inform the experts of 6 Ultimate Sect. Also, inform the Sacred Academy Sect. We must not let this evil beast continue to be presumptuous. A few Supreme Elders hurriedly shouted. At the same time, the law enforcement hall master also recovered some of his strength. He looked at Chu Fengmian with bloodshot eyes. Even if they killed Chu Fengmian now, the law enforcement hall's younger generation disciples would be wiped out. It was uncertain whether the law enforcement hall could still be one of the 8 halls in the future. The law enforcement hall had never encountered such a loss since its establishment. Merciless Dharma and Logos! Aomo roared. He gathered his strength and urged the word law above Chu Fengmian's head to suppress him. Still want to resist? Chu Fengmian looked at Aomo's attack, his eyes filled with killing intent. Aomo was the one who injured Luo Kong. Chu Fengmian could spare the lives of the other people in the law enforcement hall today, but Aomo must die. Breaking the firmament with a sword. Chu Fengmian's sword edge gathered strength and soared into the sky. A dazzling sword light directly slashed at the word law. Crack! Under Chu Fengmian's sword chi, the word law was cut in half and immediately shattered. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's body also moved. His figure was extremely fast as he directly grabbed at Aomo. Killing Aomo would be too easy for him. Chu Fengmian wanted Aomo to suffer endless pain in the world. No. We have so many people, but we can't do anything to this evil beast. Why? How can a mere quasi-emperor be like this? Chapter 1428. A total of 8 Supreme Elders from the Law Enforcement Hall had attacked together. In Aomo's opinion, even if they could not suppress Chu Fengmian, they could at least delay him. They were in the Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension. The news of Chu Fengmian creating havoc in the Law Enforcement Hall would soon spread throughout the entire Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension. He dared to attack Luo Kong because he had received permission from the others. Otherwise, Aomo would not have dared to attack the Holy Dragon Sect even though he was Emperor Gu. As long as he could stall for enough time and wait for the arrival of other experts, today's crisis would be easily resolved. However, he did not expect Chu Fengmian to break the law so easily. When he saw Chu Fengmian's figure approaching him, his face turned pale. Of course, he knew why Chu Fengmian was looking for trouble with him. If he fell into Chu Fengmian's hands, it would be more painful than death. 5 elements attack. Seeing Chu Fengmian approaching him, Aomo shouted and did not dare to hold back anymore. 5 spiritual swords flew out from beside him. The 5 spiritual swords represented the power of the 5 elements. Each spiritual sword contained an incomparably ancient aura. They were at least heaven-grade spiritual weapons from the ancient times. The power of each spiritual sword was superior to that of an ordinary heaven-grade spiritual weapon. The combined power of the 5 spiritual swords was no less than the 2 spiritual swords in Chu Fengmian's hands. 5 elements spiritual swords? These are the 5 elements spiritual swords that Luo Kong obtained? Seeing the 5 elements spiritual swords that suddenly appeared beside Aomo, Chu Fengmian's eyes were extremely cold. It was because of this set of 5 elements spiritual swords that Luo Kong had met with a calamity and almost died. This enmity was absolutely irreconcilable. 5 elements attack. Turn into a sword formation. The 5 elements spiritual swords flew out from Aomo's body and turned into a sword formation in front of him, blocking Chu Fengmian. With your strength, even if I give you 50 more, you won't be able to stop me. Seeing the 5 elements spiritual swords turn into a sword formation, Chu Fengmian smiled disdainfully. Sword formation, is it? I'll let you see what a real sword formation is. As Chu Fengmian spoke, streaks of sword light flew out beside him. The sword lights were densely packed and flew out from Chu Fengmian's body. There were more than 1,000 of them. Supreme Sword Chi. Every single sword chi was a supreme sword chi. There were a total of 1,800 supreme sword chis flying out. Chu Fengmian pointed the tip of his sword at the 1,800 strands of supreme sword chi, which immediately transformed into a sword formation. They charged towards the sword formation formed by the 5 elements spiritual swords. For a moment, countless sword shadows were clashing in the air. These 5 elements spiritual swords were indeed rare treasures. Among the countless spiritual swords Chu Fengmian had seen, there were very few that could be stronger than these 5 elements spiritual swords. However, the clash of sword formations was not only about the power of the sword edges, but also the profoundness of the sword techniques. Aomo's swordsmanship was nothing compared to Chu Fengmian's. With a crisp sound, a gap was created in the sword formation formed by the 5 elements spiritual sword. The 5 elements spiritual swords were all sent flying and scattered in all directions. Aomo's expression changed drastically when he saw this. He hurriedly tried to retrieve the 5 elements spiritual swords and form a new sword formation. However, Chu Fengmian's speed was even faster than his. With a flash of a dragon claw, the 5 elements spiritual swords all landed in Chu Fengmian's palm. These 5 elements spiritual swords were never yours. Today they are returned to their rightful owner. Chu Fengmian sneered. He held the 5 elements spiritual swords tightly in his palm and immediately shrouded them with his dragon power. Now that Chu Fengmian had awakened the power of ancestor Tianlong's bloodline, his dragon power was completely different from before. The 5 elements spiritual swords were still struggling in Chu Fengmian's palm, but they immediately quieted down when they were shrouded by Chu Fengmian's dragon power. Then, they were enveloped by Chu Fengmian's spiritual power. The imprint that Aomo had left on them was completely erased, and the 5 elements spiritual swords became ownerless again. However, Chu Fengmian didn't refine the 5 elements spiritual swords. This was an opportunity that belonged to Luo Kong. Chu Fengmian wouldn't steal his junior brother's treasure. He put the 5 elements spiritual swords into his spatial ring. On the other side, Aomo's face turned ashen when he saw the 5 elements spiritual swords fall into Chu Fengmian's hands. Aomo didn't hesitate. He immediately urged his flight light to turn around and leave. The 5 elements spiritual swords were his last resort. Now that Chu Fengmian had taken them away, Aomo no longer had any thoughts of resisting Chu Fengmian. Trying to escape? However, how could Chu Fengmian give Aomo the chance to escape? He had been watching Aomo for a long time. Chu Fengmian's purpose in coming to the law enforcement hall was to kill Aomo. The moment Aomo urged his flight light, Ancestor Tianlong's power was activated in Chu Fengmian's body. Tianlong change. Immediately, the surrounding space began to change. Under the power of the ancestral heavenly dragon, Chu Fengmian had become the ruler of this world. As Chu Fengmian pointed his finger, the space around Aomo immediately became 1,000,000 times more solid. He wanted to urge his flight light to escape, but he found that he couldn't even take a step forward. Suppress. Chu Fengmian looked at Aomo expressionlessly. The battle dragon claw condensed above his head and pressed down on Aomo. Hall Master, save me! Aomo screamed as he retreated. He didn't dare imagine what kind of pain he would suffer if he fell into Chu Fengmian's hands. Stop, vile being! The law enforcement hall master had taken advantage of this period of time to recover from his injuries. When he heard Aomo's shout, his expression changed drastically. Myriad worlds of Dharma and Logos. The law enforcement hall master and the other supreme elders made their move at the same time. Countless formations in the law enforcement hall were activated in an instant and integrated into their power. They turned into a gate that suppressed Chu Fengmian. The gate of Dharma and Logos. The law enforcement hall's sect-guarding spiritual weapon flew out, exuding an ancient power that suppressed Chu Fengmian. This spiritual weapon is good stuff. It's very similar to the primeval bronze gate. I obtained it and integrated it into my body. It's a perfect match for the primeval bronze gate to protect my body. Chu Fengmian's eyes lit up when he saw the gate of Dharma and Logos. He recognized it at a glance. It was also an incomparably ancient spiritual weapon. The law enforcement hall was crushed by Chu Fengmian's power because of the suppression of the gate of Dharma and Logos. Chapter 1429. The moment the door of Dharma and Logos appeared, the surrounding heavens and earth were suppressed. Even Chu Fengmian felt an immense pressure. Within the law enforcement hall, countless formations soared into the sky, injecting a steady stream of power into the door of Dharma and Logos. In an instant, all the law enforcement hall disciples found a core and continuously condensed their spiritual energy, injecting it into the door of Dharma and Logos. The spiritual energy of thousands of law enforcement hall disciples was injected into the door of Dharma and Logos. Even the remaining 6 supreme elders of the law enforcement hall poured their spiritual energy into the door of Dharma and Logos. Dazzling ancient patterns emerged on the door of Dharma and Logos. The door of Dharma and Logos. Beside him, Qingming's expression changed slightly. She had also heard that the law enforcement hall had a sect-guarding spiritual weapon, which was the door of Dharma and Logos. Junior brother, let me help you. Making a prompt decision, Qingming condensed her spiritual energy into a streak of green light in her palm and came to Chu Fengmian's side. No need. It's just a spiritual weapon. Senior sister, you don't have to do anything. Just watch. Hearing Qingming's words, Chu Fengmian suddenly spoke in a relaxed manner. Then, he took a step forward and faced the door of Dharma and Logos alone. Arrogant! Evil creature, you're finished. Who do you think you are to contend with the door of Dharma and Logos alone? A celestial being? Seeing Chu Fengmian step out, many of the law enforcement hall's supreme elders had mocking expressions on their faces and began to ridicule him. Even the law enforcement hall master's lips curled into a cold sneer, his eyes full of hatred. Boy, it's useless even if you beg for mercy now. Today, you and the Holy Dragon sect will be destroyed. No one can save you. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, with the accumulation of power, the power of the door of Dharma and Logos was urged to the extreme. The law enforcement hall master's mind controlled the door of Dharma and Logos, aiming it at Chu Fengmian and immediately enveloping him. Die. When the door of Dharma and Logos appeared, the heavens and earth wailed. A series of roars resounded as the surrounding space collapsed. Even the heavens and earth could not withstand the power of the door of Dharma and Logos and began to crumble. Beside Chu Fengmian, everything turned into nothingness. The power of the gate of Dharma and Logos had already locked Chu Fengmian in place, making it impossible for him to escape even if he wanted to. Can this person withstand the gate of Dharma and Logos? That's impossible. The gate of Dharma and Logos is the most important weapon of the law enforcement hall. Countless Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations have died under the gate of Dharma and Logos. There's no way this kid can resist it. Many experts in the Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension were watching the battle. Within the Holy Dragon Mystic Realm, the relationships between the various sects and halls were extremely complicated. This battle was a grudge between the Holy Dragon Sect and the Law Enforcement Hall. Many of the experts from the Martial Tyrant Hall and the 10,000 Dragon Hall were already present. They were just watching the battle. No one was willing to interfere. The Law Enforcement Hall also had countless enemies in the Holy Dragon Mystery Plane. It was already a good thing that these enemies did not kick them when they were down. Why would they help them? If the Law Enforcement Hall was really destroyed in Chu Fengmian's hands today, it was likely that the remaining survivors would be wiped out in an instant. Of course, if Chu Fengmian lost this battle, it would be the Holy Dragon Sect that would be destroyed. He's able to force the Law Enforcement Hall to use all their trump cards at the Quasi-Emperor realm. This kid is already a legend. This battle will definitely be recorded in history. One of the Emperor Gu sighed. Unfortunately, he's still too reckless. Indeed, Yun Zun dared to make a scene back then because Yun Zun's realm had already reached the level of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. His strength had also reached the half-step celestial realm. No one could do anything to him. This kid's aptitude is even more monstrous than Yun Zun back then. However, he's still too impatient. The moment the gate of Dharma and Logos fell, countless spectating experts already felt that this battle had come to an end. Under the gate of Dharma and Logos, Chu Fengmian was bound to lose. Die. Die. Aomo, who was suppressed by the heavenly dragon transformation, also shouted excitedly. If Chu Fengmian died, the set of 5 elements spirit swords that had been taken away would once again fall into his hand. This spiritual weapon is indeed a good item, but you're not qualified to use such a supreme treasure. It was only when the gate of Dharma and Logos approached that Chu Fengmian slowly opened his mouth. 9 Profound Sword Technique. First Style. Voracious Wolf. Boom. Suddenly, the sky above the Law Enforcement Hall became incomparably dark. In this darkness, specks of stars appeared. 1 sword to change day and night. This was the power of the 9 Profound Sword Technique, which was created based on the 9 Profound Sword Technique. The power of the stars shrouded Chu Fengmian's palm. In an instant, he slashed out with his sword. The power of the stars integrated into the blade and turned it into a Milky Way that bombarded the Dharmic Logos gate. The gate of Dharma and Logos immediately fell into this Milky Way. Rumble. In this Milky Way, the gate of Dharma and Logos was constantly being eroded by countless sword chi. The accumulated power on it was being broken one after another. The gate of Dharma and Logos was a spiritual weapon with unparalleled power. It was not inferior to the archaic Bronze Gate in any way. Unfortunately, it was the same as Emperor Gu's Bronze Gate. Given the strength of the Law Enforcement Hall Master, he was not qualified to use its full power. Only a 9 tribulations Emperor Gu could truly control a spiritual weapon of this level. As for using its full power, it was something that only a half-step celestial being could do. The power of thousands of Law Enforcement Hall disciples and 7 Emperor Gu's power was indeed enormous. However, this power was also incomparably chaotic. When it fell into the Milky Way and was eroded by countless sword chi, its power was immediately dispersed. The Law Enforcement Hall Master was dumbfounded when he saw this scene. He had not expected this outcome. Kill. This kid's power is suppressing the gate of Dharma and Logos. Now let's kill him directly. The Law Enforcement Hall Master was decisive. When he saw Chu Fengmian suppressing the gate of Dharma and Logos, his eyes immediately surged with murderous intent. His figure flickered, and in an instant, he was in front of Chu Fengmian. A palm bombarded Chu Fengmian. Behind the Law Enforcement Hall Master, the 6 Supreme Elders also attacked together. The power of 7 people transformed into an incomparably huge palm print and bombarded toward Chu Fengmian. How dare an ant overturn the sky? Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a somewhat disdainful smile. Chu Fengmian was still wary of the gate of Dharma and Logos, but now these supreme elders of the Law Enforcement Hall had joined forces. It was not worth mentioning. 9 profound swordsmanship, the second style, giant gate. Rumble. The power of the stars in the sky fell again and integrated into Chu Fengmian's sword blade. The first style of the 9 profound swordsmanship, greedy wolf, was an endless and unbreakable Milky Way. As for the second style, giant gate, it was a killing blow that contained pure power. Chapter 1430. Chu Fengmian took a step forward, and the tip of his sword fell. The first person to face this fatal strike was the Law Enforcement Hall Master. The Law Enforcement Hall Master did not expect Chu Fengmian's strength to be so terrifying. While suppressing the gate of jurisprudence, Chu Fengmian still had the strength to deal with them. But now there was no way out. Kill! The Law Enforcement Hall Master's power erupted, and the blood essence all over his body burned. All of his strength erupted at this moment, and even his foundation as a sovereign, the laws of heaven and earth, burned fiercely. Under this burning power, the Law Enforcement Hall Master's strength increased by 7 to 8 times. He was incomparably furious and wanted to fight to the death with Chu Fengmian. Do you think you can stop me? Chu Fengmian smiled disdainfully when he saw that the Law Enforcement Hall Master was going all out. The moment the sword light flashed, the Law Enforcement Hall Master's body was cut in half. He was the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, one of the 8 halls. Not to mention the Sacred Dragon's secret dimension, even in the entire Daluo star field, he was a well-known figure. But today he had fallen, killed by Chu Fengmian's sword. The spectating experts of the Holy Dragon's secret realm were all dumbfounded, and their mouths were wide open. The experts who thought that Chu Fengmian was definitely going to die did not know what to say now. This reversal was too earth-shattering. Originally, they thought that Chu Fengmian was already in a hopeless situation and would die without a doubt. But in a short moment there was a huge change. Not only was the gate of jurisprudence suppressed by Chu Fengmian, but the Law Enforcement Hall Master was also killed by Chu Fengmian. The 8 Hall Masters had not fallen for thousands of years. Unless a fierce war broke out, it was impossible for such a big figure to fall. Who would have thought that the Law Enforcement Hall Master would die at the hands of Chu Fengmian, a puny quasi-emperor? Looking at the bloody mist that filled the sky, countless experts of the Holy Dragon's secret realm felt a chill in their hearts. Chu Fengmian was too crazy, not only because of Chu Fengmian's strength, but also because of Chu Fengmian's crazy character. Attacking the Law Enforcement Hall recklessly was an act of making an enemy of the entire Holy Dragon's secret realm. Back then, Yun Zun did not dare to kill a Hall Master, but now Chu Fengmian had done it. If this person doesn't die, we must not make an enemy of the Holy Dragon sect. Many Supreme Elders of the Martial Tyrant Hall and Thousand Dragon Hall showed their fear. They no longer had any intention of making an enemy out of Chu Fengmian. The Law Enforcement Hall Master's death shocked everyone's heart. Chu Fengmian Yun's, Chu Fengmian's, blood was Chu Fengmian's, Chu was Fengmian, Chu's Chu Fengmian's. S's Fennis when he was in the 9 mystic celestial sovereigns' cave, Chu Fengmian had killed many Emperor Gu and fused their blood essences into the divine tree, which gave him great benefits. Chu Fengmian was still worried about where he could get Emperor Gu's blood essence. Now that the Law Enforcement Hall had delivered itself to his doorstep, Chu Fengmian would not be polite. And all of you die. After killing the Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master, the tip of the sword was pointed at the Supreme Elders of the Law Enforcement Hall behind him. No! A Law Enforcement Hall Master's body exploded the moment he came into contact with the tip of the sword. I'm Emperor Gu. I've stepped into the realm of Emperor Gu with great difficulty. How can I die today? No. Don't kill me. The supreme elders of the Law Enforcement Hall became incomparably crazy in the face of death and shouted loudly. However, Chu Fengmian's state of mind did not change at all. Since he was going to destroy the Law Enforcement Hall today, he would not let anyone off. Bam! 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 As the blade flashed across the sky, the 6 supreme elders of the Law Enforcement Hall were all killed and turned into clouds of blood mist in the sky. Devour them all. At this point, Chu Fengmian no longer hid his strength. Today, he wanted to announce his strength to the entire Holy Dragon secret realm. Anyone who dared to go against the Holy Dragon sect and Chu Fengmian would have to pay the price. A large amount of blood essence was devoured by the sky-devouring secret skill and fused into the divine tree. The divine tree was cheering excitedly as it devoured the blood essence. The countless roots in Chu Fengmian's body were all growing. The Law Enforcement Hall is finished. The Hall Master, Deputy Hall Master, and all the Supreme Elders are going to die. I'm afraid today's matter won't end well. This is such a big matter. The higher-ups are going to be furious. Looking at the tragic state of the Law Enforcement Hall, many experts in the Holy Dragon's secret realm shook their heads. The Hall Master, Deputy Hall Master, and Supreme Elders were almost all killed. More than half of the disciples were either dead or injured. From today onwards, the Law Enforcement Hall would no longer exist in the Holy Dragon's secret realm. However, the Law Enforcement Hall only had themselves to blame. Since they dared to provoke Chu Fengmian, they had to bear Chu Fengmian's anger. After devouring the blood essence that filled the sky, Chu Fengmian looked at Aomo again. The moment Aomo saw Chu Fengmian's gaze, large droplets of sweat dripped from his face. Now, he no longer resembled Emperor Gu. He was simply an ant that was scared out of his wits. After seeing Chu Fengmian kill the Law Enforcement Hall Master and all the Supreme Elders with a single strike, he was completely scared out of his wit. He begged while trembling, Chu Fengmian, let me go. I know many secrets of the Law Enforcement Hall. If you let me go, I'll tell you everything. Now, I'm the only one who knows the secrets of the Law Enforcement Hall. If you kill me, you won't get any of the treasures of the Law Enforcement Hall. The treasures of the Law Enforcement Hall? When Chu Fengmian heard this, he sneered. Treasures? The treasures in Chu Fengmian's possession were enough to build several law enforcement halls. Why would Chu Fengmian care about the treasures of the Law Enforcement Hall? You still want to threaten me? Chu Fengmian sneered. Chu Fengmian reached out his hand and grabbed Aomo. Aomo was held in Chu Fengmian's palm. I won't kill you today. Your life and death will be decided by my junior brother. Chu Fengmian circulated his spiritual energy. Immediately, countless restrictions were placed on Aomo's body. Aomo's strength was suppressed to the level of the divine power realm. Now, he was no different from an ant. Senior sister, I'll leave this old dog to you. Return to the Holy Dragon sect and hand him over to junior brother Luokong. With a wave of his hand, Chu Fengmian threw Aomo, who had been suppressed, towards Qingming. Qingming caught Aomo. Killing intent flashed in her eyes, but she did not kill him. The person who hated Aomo the most was Luokong. Chapter 1431. After handing Aomo over to Luokong, Chu Fengmian's gaze fell on the door of Dharma and Logos that was suppressed in the Milky Way. At first glance, Chu Fengmian could tell that the door of Dharma and Logos was a supreme treasure with an astonishing origin. Although it was the spiritual weapon of the Law Enforcement Hall, Chu Fengmian had already destroyed the Law Enforcement Hall today. Of course, Chu Fengmian would not let go of the door of Dharma and Logos. Sky-devouring mystic technique. Sky-devouring. Chu Fengmian looked at the door of Dharma and Logos that was still struggling in the Milky Way. With a thought, the power of the sky-devouring beast's heart in his body was instantly activated. Activating the sky-devouring mystic technique, it immediately devoured the door of Dharma and Logos. The power of the sky-devouring mystic technique continuously devoured the power of the door of Dharma and Logos. The ancient veins were constantly being devoured. Does this person intend to refine the door of Dharma and Logos? The door of Dharma and Logos has been in the law enforcement hall for tens of thousands of years and has been branded with an indelible mark. It can't be refined. No, look, the veins on the door of Dharma and Logos are being refined continuously. How is this possible? What kind of mystic technique is this? What a terrifying power! Sky devouring? This is the legendary power of the sky-devouring beast. How can this person control the power of the sky-devouring beast? The scene before them caused an uproar. As the spiritual weapon of the law enforcement hall, the door of Dharma and Logos was famous in the entire Holy Dragon mystery dimension. Many experts had once coveted the door of Dharma and Logos. However, the door of Dharma and Logos had been in the law enforcement hall for tens of thousands of years. The door of Dharma and Logos had been branded with an indelible mark of the law enforcement hall. Even a nine tribulations Emperor Gu or a half-step celestial being would find it difficult to erase it. Only the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall and the Supreme Elders could activate the imprint on it and activate the door of Dharma and Logos. The door of Dharma and Logos, which was originally impossible to refine, was now being refined continuously in Chu Fengmian's hands. The imprint on it was slowly being erased. The eyes of many experts in the Holy Dragon mystery ground flickered with greed when they saw this scene. Everyone knew that the door of Dharma and Logos was a valuable treasure. Whoever could refine it would definitely be of great help. Little guy, hand over the gate of Dharma and Logos. This thing belongs to the Holy Dragon mystery dimension. It's not something you can obtain. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared. At the same time, an incomparably dignified voice was transmitted. A strong power of heaven and earth followed. At this moment, a middle-aged man wearing an imperial robe appeared. Even the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall did not have the guts to wear an imperial robe in the Holy Dragon secret realm. However, the Supreme Elder Master, the Supreme Elder Supreme Elder Sect. Way. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the Law Enforcement Hall did not dare to openly provoke the Holy Dragon sect given their strength. Today, even if Chu Fengmian did not make a move, Qing Meng alone was enough to turn the Law Enforcement Hall upside down. There were definitely other experts hiding behind her. Seeing Great Elder He Chen's appearance, everyone understood what was hidden behind the Law Enforcement Hall. 6 Ultimate Sect. First Elder Blackdust was precisely one of the 6 first elders of the 6 Ultimate Sect. Great Elder. Although this title did not sound as good as Supreme Elder, it represented a different status within the Sacred Dragon secret realm. They were the elders of the 4 sections. Only the elders of the 4 sects were qualified to be called the Grand Elder. Judging from his aura alone, Great Elder He Chen was not much stronger than the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. The head of the Law Enforcement Hall was only at the level of Emperor Gu in Shui Exin. Great Elder He Chen was at least at the level of the Blood God Emperor Gu. He was at the peak of the 8 Calamities Emperor Gu. He was even stronger than the Blood God Emperor Gu. Is the main character here? Chu Fengmian was not surprised to see Great Elder He Chen appear. The Law Enforcement Hall was just a dog that bit people. Of course, the Law Enforcement Hall was not the only one that wanted to deal with the Holy Dragon Sect. 6 Ultimate Sect. 6 Ultimate Sect, one of the 4 sects, was the real enemy of the Holy Dragon Sect. 6 Ultimate Sect could tolerate Chu Fengmian destroying the Law Enforcement Hall, but they could not tolerate the door of jurisprudence falling into Chu Fengmian's hands. Especially since Great Elder He Chen had witnessed the battle. He was aware of Chu Fengmian's strength. Now that the door of jurisprudence had fallen into Chu Fengmian's hands, Chu Fengmian's strength would become even more powerful in the future. It was definitely not something he wanted to see. Chu Fengmian, Do you know that you can't even save yourself today? Destroying the law enforcement hall might seem impressive, but what you've provoked is the rule of the entire Holy Dragon's secret territory. The dignity of the Holy Dragon's secret territory is not allowed to be blasphemed. Great Elder Heichen looked at Chu Fengmian and sneered. The upper echelons of the academy should be coming out of seclusion now. When the time comes, the first one to die will be you. Anyway, you're already a dead man. Why don't you obediently hand over the door of jurisprudence and hand over all the fortuitous encounters you have? I can consider it. When the time comes, I'll only kill you and spare the Holy Dragon sect. That's right, Chu Fengmian. If you're obedient today, you might still be able to keep your life. If you continue to resist, you'll definitely die. Another voice sounded. A figure flew out and stood beside Great Elder Heichen. The aura on this person's body was not as strong as Great Elder Heichen's, but it was on par with the Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master. He was also an 8 Tribulation Emperor Gu, the Sword Comprehension Hall's Hall Master. Seeing the identity of this person, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, incomparably shocked. It was another 8 Hall Master. One of the 8 Halls, the Hall Master of the Sword Comprehension Hall. The 8 Hall Masters were important figures who rarely appeared in the Holy Dragon's secret territory. This time, it was not only the Law Enforcement Hall Master who appeared. Even the Hall Master of the Sword Comprehension Hall had appeared. Great Elder Heichen was also present. The 2 8 Tribulation Emperor Gu stood in front of Chu Fengmian. Just the aura on their bodies alone was enough to bring about immense pressure. I don't want the door of jurisprudence. Little guy, hand over your supreme sword chi and I can spare the Holy Dragon sect, and spare the others. The Hall Master of the Sword Comprehension Hall looked at Chu Fengmian with a greedy gaze. He then spoke to Qing Meng. Chapter 1432. Taking the opportunity to rob. Although the Sword Comprehension Hall Master's words were sanctimonious, they were only 4 words after all. Taking the opportunity to rob. He had witnessed the destruction of the Law Enforcement Hall but did not take action. He had been waiting for Chu Fengmian to destroy the Law Enforcement Hall. To him, Chu Fengmian had no way out after destroying the Law Enforcement Hall. He was dead for sure. The upper echelons of the Sacred Dragon Mystery Dimension would never allow Chu Fengmian to live. Now they had come to take advantage of the situation. As the Sword Comprehension Hall Master, he was a profound sword cultivator. He naturally understood the preciousness of the Supreme Sword Chi. The Supreme Sword Chi recorded the world's sword technique. It was worthy of being called a Supreme Sword Treasure. It was even rumored that there was an even greater secret hidden in the Supreme Sword Chi. Only by obtaining all 3,000 strands of Supreme Sword Chi would one be able to crack the secret. Of course, no one knew if this rumor was true or false. However, even without this rumor, no one could ignore the value of Ultimate Sword Chi as a supreme treasure of the Way of the Sword. It was definitely something that thousands of sword cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. The Holy Dragon sect will never be threatened, Qing Meng said coldly when she heard the Sword Comprehension Hall Master's words. Sword Comprehension Hall, are you planning to intervene? Be careful that you don't get any benefit. You will be destroyed. Qing Meng, you don't have to be stubborn. Anyone with eyes can see today's outcome. Don't waste your breath. Let this kid be obedient and your Holy Dragon sect may still have a chance to survive. Otherwise, the Holy Dragon sect can only be buried with this kid today. The Sword Comprehension Hall Master smiled when he heard the killing intent in Qing Meng's words. The Holy Dragon sect is unyielding. I don't know if you can still be so unyielding when the Holy Dragon sect is about to be destroyed. The Hall Master of the Sword Comprehension Hall turned her head and looked at Great Elder Heichen. Great Elder Heichen, there's no need to wait for the others. Let's join forces and capture this kid. I only want his Supreme Sword Chi and the 2 spiritual swords. The rest will belong to the 6 Ultimate sect. How about it? Sure. Great Elder Heichen nodded when he heard this. Although the supreme sword Qi and the spiritual sword were precious treasures, he didn't practice swordsmanship, so they wouldn't be of much use to him. What he was interested in was Chu Fengmian's opportunities and the gate of Dharma and Logos. In the blink of an eye, both Grand Elder Heichen and the Hall Master of the Sword Comprehension Hall unleashed their auras. Their murderous intent was not concealed at all as they glared at each other. Under their gazes, the two of them were accumulating spirit force and could attack at any moment. Is everyone here? Chu Fengmian's expression didn't change at all in the face of the killing intent of the two Emperor Gu. Since Chu Fengmian planned to make a big scene today, he didn't only want to deal with the small fries of the Law Enforcement Hall. Among the experts present in the Holy Dragon Mystery Realm, there were many who wanted to deal with Chu Fengmian. However, only two of them came out. Chu Fengmian was surprised. Just as Chu Fengmian finished speaking, another figure flew out from the crowd. The two of you, how can you not let this old man take part in such a good thing? It was the figure of an old man. The moment he appeared, a dragon's roar resounded in the surroundings. The dragons roared and the dragon's aura lowered. Emperor Wan Long, the Hall Master of the Thousand Dragon Hall. Seeing the arrival of the old man, many people were shocked. There were too many experts here this time. Now, not only the Sword Comprehension Hall wanted to intervene, but even the Thousand Dragon Hall couldn't wait any longer. Emperor Wan Long, why are you here? Grand Elder Heichen looked at Emperor Wan Long and asked calmly. Of course, I'm also here for the opportunity on this person. This old man also wants to take part in such a great opportunity. His bloodline contains the bloodline of ancestor Tianlong. I want his bloodline. Emperor Wan Long stared at Chu Fengmian and said with greed in his eyes. Emperor Wan Long was a member of the Dragon Clan. He was Tianlong who had obtained a great opportunity. However, due to the limitations of his bloodline, his strength could only reach the pinnacle of the Eight Tribulation Emperor Gu. It was almost impossible for him to advance further. Chu Fengmian's body contained the bloodline of ancestor Tianlong. Obtaining Chu Fengmian's bloodline was enough to elevate Emperor Wan Long's bloodline to a higher level. Brat, you're already at death's door today. There's no point in continuing to struggle. Obediently surrender. Emperor Wan Long stared at Chu Fengmian and sneered. Hand over your fortuitous encounter obediently. You're going to die today, but if you're obedient, we can consider not going against the Holy Dragon sect. Sword Comprehension Hall's Hall Master sneered and said, You're going to die for offending your superiors and killing your fellow sect members. It's useless for anyone to plead for you. Be obedient and don't waste your energy. This is the Holy Dragon adversity. No matter how many tricks you have, you won't be able to escape. Great Elder Heichen stared at Chu Fengmian and said with a cold smile, You're just a bunch of weaklings. Escape? Who said I'm going to escape? Chu Fengmian burst into laughter when he heard their threats. Just as well. Today, I plan to capture all the enemies of the Holy Dragon sect in one fell swoop. The three of you took the initiative to jump out and save me the trouble of searching for you one by one. The rules of the Holy Dragon secret realm? I don't care about the rules. Anyone who dares to go against me and the Holy Dragon sect will die today. So will the three of you. Chu Fengmian's gaze swept across the three of them. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. Great Elder Heichen and the other two panicked when they saw Chu Fengmian's gaze. It was as if they were being stared at by an incomparably ferocious beast. They couldn't help but feel nervous. Kill. Don't talk nonsense with this brat. Don't suppress him. Just kill him to prevent future trouble. Great Elder Heichen roared and attacked first. Black dust filled the sky and turned into a tornado. The black dust was sharper than a blade in the tornado. Everything in its path was destroyed. The Hall Master of the Sword Comprehension Hall followed closely behind. A pitch-black spiritual sword appeared in his hand. Although the spiritual sword wasn't as good as the two spiritual swords in Chu Fengmian's hands, it also contained an ancient aura. It was also an extremely ancient heaven-grade spiritual weapon. The sword flashed and a sword light slashed at Chu Fengmian. The Hall Master of the Thousand Dragon Hall, Emperor Wan Long, also attacked. He used the Dragon Clan's martial technique and turned it into a dragon claw that attacked Chu Fengmian. The 3/8 Tribulation Emperor Gu attacked Chu Fengmian together. This scene was simply incomparably shocking. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.